Hani saattaa he kwanu isikata toyaka. Nina hani kutui handi. Kola tava. Yamusanela kutui sayo. Kono famizo waka kubutuku. Kambe kiyomu kambe ungire sivaka mwendini kuya kwa spatera kapako inafera kwandu kuli apumule. Kensa kuli omusevezi wona kimusevezi o vulera. Useveri sali nzwila hao. Useveri samumizo mulomo. Nibona kuli nilingo. Kona kuli hakimusevezi wo. Oko na kutahani kuto inafera batili. Chwale. Nibona kuli kapalove ni lola pere kuli hanikazo famoya hanina kukulelera. Nina nika la pera nika avanisa po ya kuli. Hanikazo famoya hanina kukulelera. Kona kuli. Kachanu kutata fezi. Kono ni prelezi kuli alie. Luya liolika. Hape ni sava kuina kwandu. Kakuli hape na aziva kuli kwa spatela hanina kuya. Ni butuko famu mizo na nenivoni kuli. Taba kuna wezanga kuli nako ninako ya kwa spatela mo kuli la famu mizo ya kwa spatela mo kuli la famu mizo ya kwa spatela. Bao kufama antibiotics. Nako ninako bao kufama antibiotics. Kuli butuku bao saifera bonavungi. Kwanda kuvereksa muliani. Mi muliani wa hangata kima antibiotics kakuli. Kibutuku bao kuli samuviri kaufera. Kukala viki efelile nenu pula kuli mwendiki COVID eta serizes chava. Iba seri kuno tongo kakuli kubona wali COVID gele yokuta. Kono hape kwa liverenge hani weli kwa sotola hani weli. Kono muviri waka na wikutua fela kuli. Kuna ni vutata kuna ni sesingwi. Kono nensa koni kuswalisa handi ndinde kuli vutata kibufi. Nilikire kuli esi mwendi. Kili verengelata haka pachwani. Hakuna. Kono na utuwa kuli muviri wako chisize hanu uswala na utuwa kuli muviri wako chisize hakilishea. Chwale. Konji. Lavutano. Lavutano sento shungala. Hanto tali mafamizo waka sento wana kufu velezi. Sento shungala kuli kanti kona vutatavo. Chwale hape mwendi mafosene ni ezize lavutano hanizwa kwanu ni lewa uleka ice cream. Avutano hanizwa kwanu nila kuleka ice cream. Chale hanizivi kuli ice cream fani niyo na yekelize kapachwani. La sabata hape nwile sikasesi vata. Kona kuli mavani hanizwa hanga. Ne kuminyisize insingilishea. Chwale luve nisepo ya kuli halukazwa famo ya kachenu. Hakuna vutatavo vukaekeza. Hakuna vutatavo vukaekeza kona kuli. Luhamo mi kona kuli kimizuzuye nibulefa wali kimizuzuye lova periese lova hile kwa hola ya pili ya vulisho mingwe mi hawa luhamo hoa shangwe. Lavutano neliko kunde maswe. Vo Hendrix neba ningole ziringosa uli nebali kakuliza kono neba palezwi kena famoya. Mi se neba sepsa kuli lamuvulo katova hamoho. Mi nivona kuli mwendimo tuonangali ke kuvaswala. Baba ngwenge basika kala kale. Nge basika kala kale. Kukuliza. Kona kuli. Luzuse ni baba tona nuna kwa alikepela lunakwani. Kwa alikepela Eagle FM. Lukone kumizusa. Ni kumiamhera. Habe kachena mbaba ngata. Kachena mvwana hala ngata shangwe. Nikona kuli luhamo. Mafelo aviki amina za maire chani kuyeza hezini. Mafelo aviki amina. Nitavela kapare nika ikutu handa hene nika lova la fela. Kukala la muvulo mane haisi kuyoliti la sunda. chale vupilo havuvele kichwalo ni vupilo havuvele kichwalo shangwe vupilo havuvele kichwalo shangwe kona kuliwa kona kuvani milelo hao mie vupilo nivo nafuta kuvulera kuli milelo kiye kapa mulelo kiwo nihono lelile chwalo wena mungi iyaluna milelo kiye kavumai kona kuli nani mulelo wakwina nani mulelo wakwina mwandu mafelo aviki chale kavumai asha vupilo nivo nakona vuli maana lisa insingi chwalo insingi chwalo vupilo havupili wangi chwalo fokungi mise nipumana mwa litava zengwi zene niyezela savata kona kuli mulelo waka wakwina mwandu ausika kona kupetala kona kuli faha pese nitalimezi mafelo avike ata naziva kuli nitanezi kono mutu sa talimezi mafelo avike ata kuli avone kuli ukapumula chwani kono nivona kuli mwendi kusalovala kona kukutusize kuli nisike na kulelela kambe ninzi mwandu kambe nivona kuli nelusike lwako na kutova hamo kachenu kenchale tono kikuli mutu konle kusalovala konle kuipatesa nzengwi me awa seli kuikutwa mbuvu kona utrova hamo kora kuli kutalima piho ye nivona faya vuvangoki ke kuvihiwa kuli litava za kukwaeza vatu inge vainzi mama yemo kukolwa vuchwala avona hala kuli kapali piho zivona hala kuli zikonle kungasi vaka mwa mafelo avikiye kuvile nili piho za kukwaeza mutu inganwile vuchwala sekonle kuvihiwa ki spokola sana mi mwapiho yengwi kuna ni muna anatamirwe mi kukuluvela kuna sweli kukwaeza motkala yetuna inga kozwi vuchwala la vutanu hola ya vune yaka kusasani fam kwa ozva halakasi 24 mi piho ya vuvangoki yezu sizwe la sunda ivi hakuli mona na sweli kuno kwaeza motkala yetuna ye nengolisizwe kwasivaka sakit manswap mi kuvihiwa kuli na sweli kukwaeza ni vuchwala vo vuskalumelelwa mwa muvili wa hai mi ukuluvelwa kuli ukave ayemi mwakuta ya Rehoboth kachenu la muvulo mi mapiho yengwi kwa svaka sa Rehoboth muna wali moze mashumi amaveli nizeketalizoho na ata milu asamlaho akukwaeza motkala inganwile vuchwala hola ya msihali ya vuveli kona kuli nevamu mwavona kantokani kavaseveli sanga kakufulela mbana kimona cholo kapaki ni baba mbahananga kweza chalo kona kuli havato muvulela kuli seri kuna vatali masi lozifa kapala uvulele fe uli havato mutatuva seri kufumana kuli nana ni vuchwala mwa muvili wa hai kona kuli niyena ukava yemi mwakuta yeswana kachenu la muvulo kwasivaka sa kalkuran kuna ni muna walili moze mashumi amane nsili mosirisingwi yo yana tamirwe hola yavulova ngwi yavusiu la vutano mi kukuluvelwa kuli na sweli kukwaeza motkale ne longile livyana inganwile vuchwala mi ona tava eneza hisfam kwa ozvahala kasi 21 kona kuli nivaizo mutama kwa station samapokola sa Calgrande mi asamla hakumtatu vavo chwala seri kufumana kulinana nivuchwala muviri wa haye mi ukavaye mi mwakuta ya vo magistrate ya Mariental kachenu la muvulo mi kwasipaka sa Stamprit muna walilimo ze mashumi amaverinzelo vapeli niyena utalimani ni muzeko wa kukwaeza motkala ingandwile vuchwala amochoni kukwaeza motkala isika tokomelo mi ona tavaeneza hezi hola ya vuke talizoya manzi vwani kwa ozvahala kasi 20 mi mapokola vakuluvela kulia kuluvelwa asoeli kuno kwaeza motkala hato chaisa hato chaisa sisopo kwa mi hava tomtatu vaseri kutofumana kulinana ni vuchwala muvili wa haye mi hakuna likolofalo ze konle kuvihiwa mwapihoye mi yana kwaeza ona motkale naseri kukwaeza anosi kona kuli ukave ayemi mwakuta kachenu la muvulo mwakuta wa magistrate ya Mariental votata wakula famumiza mazi wafahani vulera votata vwa famumiza mazi wafahani vulera ni kutwa enge kuli kuna nzensweli kuno enge kuna nze kakatezi famumiza waka kona votata chwale anizivikulu lukapira chwani kachenu lihola zepeli anizivikulu lukapira chwani hapefa lihola zepeli maindelo nwemezi halolike hovona kuna ni maswiti ane ambuli anene nzeri kumungusha kona uli ni mezi kwanu avava akuna zende mahano yaka kachenu kona kuli yoko na piho yeni fomani yevihilwe kwa ma lipio za vangoki halvone lutali mezengi milukamiza mati halu savata zengi lipio za vangoki luluvone kuli zevihilwe mafelo avikie kilifizani kilifi mi muske maya kwa hule luka tozo la pili hangi lo ha moho senisa vani kulofa kwa msevesika uli nazi vakuli lipule lo zenika tofu mana hanika yokuta famoya fakitobone wakuta ni senta kwa msevezi nge nikulile ndio tozo la pili.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Lipuranengelo wapombwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tuto ingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile Oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshuana. Onongeshe fa ya pumbo kukaraya kovano. Okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna emitoda njuka. Okukwetera oipindi konu konda doili nawa. Nuneudo o tukwetera o speciala ngeta shake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka. Opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamoili nawa. Ningepata fanona Monica ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Enshangwe lwazwe rapidi kona kuli elulikire kutali matalima kono kubana hala kuli zengwe ili pihoza vango kiazisika kona kuvihiwa kale mi nubana kuli hazika vihiwa nikatomikandikira zona hazika vihiwa nikakona kutomikandikira zona seri kumevulera tava yakuli vutata ho kulile famumizo ho inge monseri kuvulera chwana ku ni utwa famumizo wakenge kuli kuna nze kakatesi fateni inge kuli kuna ntu sapo mabana fane oseri kuchangweshi chore waitivala kuli oseri kuno changweshi mi utongaka nama kandi kuna ntu sapo mi utomiza wana tu sapo twaswala famumizo wa hao kwa na mono utwela famumizo waka chore haiva kuli kunani babasaka nanakuli hanilati programu ye hanilati nimina batelezi vaka awa muchinche muhopolo wa mina kakuli na lata ni programu ya una kona hanitile kamba kiyo mungwe kamba ongile na kone kuya kwa spatela ken chwale nani hanile ni vezi kuli ni vase pisiza la votanu kuli nikavateng kona kuli kinayo ni zota ni haike ni haike kona kuli kwa futumala nensori kwa mbola ni vosinengera nsori kuno ambola ni vosinengera kona kuli vasori kuno ntongekera mbumbi ye kuli vakazira kakuli vona haki vatu vavatavela mbumbi chole nane nsori kuvavulea kuli nana alata mbumbi chole ntoeni sala fela mambumbi kiminangi kakuli minangi sani luma muviri waka kuna ni moyezi zanga kuswana inge mutufani hayu waki kayuki kavizu wakuli nki kayuwe ni fani mutu haka muyua kayuwe kona kudi nina kona monyezi zanga ni salumiwa kiminangi chole kona hani salumela ningi ni kulumiwa kiminangi nako yeterere chole nane nsori kuvavulea kuli nana alata kuna ni baba ngoziri ngusa uli vasweli kuna uluvuha kwa naha Angola kwa svaka sa Luanda chale hauzifa kapaba utu wa mushobo kapaba siri kuvuhafela kuli ki musali yo munde ya sweli kuna uvulela fa wireless havuzivifa kono lwaitumela kona kuli nensiri kuvulela tava kuli hansala timi nankili vakala kuli ni kutwa inge fani mutu yezi wanga ki kayuo na hupaka kuli inge usaliva nana neluka visanga kuli kika ngi kene nilivala kona kuli kuna ni mwende vale taba diske na ibure ya moya DCF DCF la tabeka kuli kafale litise sahadi kaivule la famoya fachele Elusive la kona kuli kuna ni tava ye nivona fani haike tava ye sali kukozisa kweli yani haieza hala hakuna sisi mselu konle kuotwa hakuna nebele maombo na konle kuotwa matava ye kona kuli kitava ya vene vali baba hulu va spokola sana mi fani vona piho kwa matava ya vona mi vona piho ya kuli ni vakonle kuyofa evu paki kwali ne kula vona kweli efelile kona kuli katengo kakazi vahala ka the Security Commission kakonle kufa lukali kikelezo kakonle kufa kelezo kakonle kufa kamo kavonela litava kuva mweteleli wanaha kwa mavupilo vavo Inspector General vo Joseph Shikongo kwa mavupilo vavona wa kwa pili mi nivona kuli lehaike piho ye kapalitavaze hazisika kona kukeniswa handendende kona kuli onaka tengoka kakonle kususueza vamweteleli kwa masilelezo kapa kwa malitavaza silelezo mine vamemile vo Shikongo kweli efelile kukona kuyofa paki kwali ne kulavona mikivu paki kwama tava eneza hezi kwandu yavamweteleli wanaha kapa kwandu yanaha mikitava kwama muna yanafumanwi ni mapunu yona izofumanwa kwasivaka kova ina vamweteleli wanaha kona kuli vo Shikongo vaizovulela kuli vona tava ye havai paki kona kuli havana mulatu ona mwakezo ye kona kuli asamulaho kuti akutwa lineku la vo Shikongo vakatengo kavakonle kufa likelezo kuvomweteleli wanaha kwa makamova kazwela pili ni tava ya vo Shikongo mis na hauzi vakuli vo Shikongo va sialezwi kili kweli zeli shumi ni zesilezi kuli musevezi wavona ukone kutofita kwa maferelezo kapa uvulele kuli nako hava tozwiswa musevezi swalelele kona ali kweli zenesi yezi ze kuli bakone kutofita kwa maferelezo atumelelano ya musevezi ye vanani lwazi vakuli vo Shikongo ne vakonle kuzwiswa musevezi makweli ya kandao asamulaho ona kezo ye yeneza hezi kwandu yavomweteleli wanaha mi nelukonle kutwa litava kapali kolovelo zakuli kivona vene vakonle kufumanwa ni mafosa kwama ona kezo yeneza hezi ye kuli ne vapalezwi kusileleza vomweteleli wanaha vavona kona kuli anizivina kakuli tava ye hai vakuli mwahupula mwakweli ya kandao haloto utwazi visoka ofela luna buli vo Shikongo vakonle kuzwiswa musevezi swalelele nekuna ni lipuzo zengata hulu zenekonle kuvuziwa kisi chava hamo cholo ni vamakande ni vavamwi kwa makuli sistisize ona kezo ye kwa dinekula vamweteleli wanaha kisi kamanyi kapa kisifi mi nekuna likuluvelo za kuli mawe kili vakala kuli kuna nimuna ezofumanwa ni mapunu kwandu ya vamweteleli wanaha vavamne vafali kuluvelo zavona zenza koni kuvolelana famoyafa kono kufumanihile kuli nelusazi vihande kuli sensisize ona kezo yani kwali nekula vamweteleli wanaha kisifi kapa kisi kamanyi kono mwali kandelele nsweli kuvala fa lwa ikutwela kaofela luna kuli kiona kezo ya muna yani yana izofumanwa ni mapunu mwandu ya mweteleli wana kona kuli kuna ni vavuzizwe kwa maona tavaye kona kuli kivomu inaspula vakatengo kaka Security Commission mi vavuzizwe kwa maona tavaye mi vahanle kufa maikuto kwa maona tavaye mi vaise kuli vazi vakuluna ni mukopano onokonle ku vatengi mi vakonle kufa kamo vavonela tava kuva mweteleli wanaha kuli vona vakone kuyeza katulo mi vaize kuli havakone kufa maikuto fa tavaye kensa kuli omweteleli wanaha vanosi kivona vavakona kufa maikuto kwa maona tavaye mi vo Shikongo ni wana vahanile kufa maikuto avona kwa maona tavaye mi vaize kuli basainzi kwandu mi vaise kuri ao ki maombo nwa fela mi hana vupaki kona kuri vaise kuri havakoni kufama ikuto kuva makande mwana koni achwale konona ko haikaluka vakakona kufama ikuto kwama ona tava mi vaise kuri nako yeo haiyo kwa huri mi ao ki maikuto ane bavulezi kweli yefedile kwama ona tava mi hakusika kona kuzibahala handendende foko kenile kuli vaka tengo ka security commission vakonle kuyofuma nanyi mi kiri kelezo manyi ze vakonle kufa kumomweteleli wana kwama ona tava kona uli lukali tela lutwe kuli sesieza halakisika manyi kakuli iyeni ona tava lutwa faka penseli kuvalafa hakuna vuniti vwayona handendende haluzivi kapa vene vali vavahulu vasipokola sanaha ne vazwisizwe musevezi swalelele livakala kuli kuna limuna nelizofumanwa kwande avomweteleli wanaha ni mapunu kapachani haluzivi kolondo bona kuli ungata wasichava ni vakuluvela kuliswa nela kuva ona tava iyani yenetisize ona katuloye kwali nekula vamweteleli wanaha kona haluzivi jelo litere kuli lwikutere kuli sesieza hana kiskamanyi kwali neku la vamweteleli wanaha ndibona kuli nako haika fita vakakona kutozi visasi chava kwama kuli senesieza hezi kiskamanyi mi senestisize ona kezo ekiskamanyi mi litava izwela chwani pili chwale kona zeo kwama tava ya vosh Kongo kono lizibakuli musevezi kapa tumelelano ya musevezi wavona ne iswanela kutofita kwa mafika iswanela kutofita kwa mafelele zosi limosestaha mwakweli ya kikweli ya muimunene yani kikweli ya ni kikweli ya muimunene kweli ya muimunene kikweli ya September silimoses felili ni chwale kona zeo ki mizuzu ye mashimi amaveli ni yelo vangu yesesi ales kulukone ukena mwa hola ya volishumi peli milo azwela peli lo pumulisemo mizawaka hainyani milo tozwela peli kamso heva ni kaotwavu tugu chwana hani tai.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saim, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm alwaalways telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Eni lwazwe la pili. Ensha kona kuli. Seli mizozo ye mashimi ya maveri ni eke talizoho. Yese love hile. No. Yese siyalezi. Kuli ukene mwa hola ya veri. Hola avulishimi peri. Kachani nako yutohala kuli sweli kunoza maya kavunya. Ni utohala kuli sweli kunohohova. Kona kuli kachani kutata fezi kachani kutata fezi na aziba kuli bavulelanga kuli mutu hakulile akone akone kuyopumula kuli mutu hakulile sonela kuina kwandu sonela kuya kwa spatela chale na handi zive kuli ni tezi inkwano wana kuli mwendi kili vaka kuli kili vaka la kuli lavutano nenifirwe mamela lavutano nenifirwe mamela mi senisava kuli famo tukuli hape akone kusataha kwa musevezi baka munyemela maswe vatu ovana ne banyemire kale kuli ne chonile kona kuli taba yali tapi zaluna hani vule yali tapi zaluna ni vule yali tapi za kwa security litapi za zibahala ka brim fish zambezi brim kuna likande mwa pampili ya luna ya makande miki pampili ya kachenu kona kuli nikamivalela ona likandele kuli lukone kuvala hamoho lukone kutwisa hamoho cholo kuli likande libihanyi kona kuli kuna lipatisto ze konde kuyezwa mwali nuka zefumane hamwa skiliti sa zambezi mi ona lipatisto ze konde kufumana kuli kuna nukufukuzeha kwa litapi za ezi zivahala ka zambezi brim hamo cholo ni mfuta wa litapi zemwi ona mwali nuka zaluna pamali vaka mo kufumane hanga litapi mwa skiliti saluna kona kuli ona lipatisoze kapa ona tavaye ikonde kutsa kuli kukone kuvani kupo ya kukala ya kukala restock kichwanifa mwende luvulele kuli kikukala kikusireleza kapa kikung'atafaza inge kona kuli ona tava ese fumani ye vafumani kuli sekuna ni vutokwa wa kukona kuekeza luvulele kuli kuekeza kwa peu ya litapi za brim hamo cholo ni mifuta ya litapi zengi kona kuli ona tava ikitavene konle kuzivahazwa mapiho ya va Zambezi Regional Council ya sirimo yene konle kuzwiswa mwandu ya milao na konyana ya kwa mulaho kona kuli piho yene konle kuzwiswa kipiho yevihile kwama lizwelo pili ze konle kuvatengi mwaskilitisa Zambezi matata ava konle kutarimana niwona hamo chalo ni lisusuwezo ni milelo ya silimo sa 2025 kukala kweli ya lungu haina ni lizazi lililimwi kutofita silimo sa 2026 mafelelezo akweli yali atamani kona kuli tapi ezvahala ka Zambezi brim kitapi yefumane ha hulululi mwa sivaka sa Angola Namibia hamo choni Zambia me kitapi yeswaliwa ahulu ona mali vakaze mi ona tapi yeswana ifumane hamo cholo ni mwa Kavango hamo cholo ni Zambezi kwana kuli tapi ye kitapi Elusive kuli lilimo na lilimo sekonle kufita kitapi yesvahala kuva tompo kitompo kisi supo sa tompo mi kitapi yesvahala kuli itavelwa ahulululi mwali vakakaufela zanaha mi kitapi yele kiswa mwa misika ya luna amo chalo ni mwali vaka mokule kiswa alicho kona kuli Zambezi Regional Council kuya kalikolo le lizvahala kalikolo la litapi hamo choni litava Zamezi vakonle kweza lipatisiso kwama ona litapize mwali vaka mokufitanga mezi mwaskiliti sa Zambezi mi litava zivakonle kufumana ansamla halipatiso zikonle kufumana kuli palo ya litapi ikonle kukutela ahulu fafasi mwali nuka zefumaneha mwaskiliti sa luna kona kuli ki palo ya litapi ze shitana hamo chalo niona tapi ye Elusive kaufela luna kuli ki Zambezi brim kona kuli lipatiso ze vakonle kuyeza vakonle kufama mela kwama kuzwela pili kukona kuyamba ona litapize kona kuli lipatiso ze konle kufumanwa zisupeza kuli mufuta wa litapi kele zikutela ahulu fafasi litapi kuli zikutezi ahulu fafasi kuya ka mifuta ya zona mi bazwela pili kukuluvela kuli haiva kuli litapi ze liteni mwana koni ya chwale kapa muyambelo o liteni mwana koni ya chwalo hauchinchi hakuna kuvani litapi ze kakona kusiala mwali nuka zaluna hamo choni mwali vaka mokufita mezi mokufumane halitapi lilimo zeketa lizoho zetaha kwa pili mane muyutwele tavayo kuli mikwa ye liteni fa ya kuyamba kayona haiva kuli haina kuchincha haiva nge musa chinchi miyambelo ya mina mwaskiliti sa Zambezi kwa kutokwa ni tapi ye kakona kufumaneha lilimo zetaha zeketa lizoho mwendise lukavulelanga fela kuli nekuvanga nilitapi zezivahala kali papatili mbufu onafo niferela anizivi nazivali ngweshi naziva ngweshi naziva milumesi nazivali papati nazivali mbufu naziva linembele kakuli haki matilapias fela matilapias kili papati kapa ili mbufu kona kuli ki mifuta ya litapi kamukana yese konle kukusofala ahulululi kona kuli Regional Council vakonle kususuweza vava yambanga kuli vakone kuvavalela linuka za luna vakone kuvavalela hamo chalo nilika zepila mwalinuka za luna mi vafile mutala vakuli luyeza cholo sinamo luvavalela lifolofolo za mwana hengi ya luna kona kulipiho Yesu ana ikonle kufa likelezo bakonle kususuweza insinkweleza bako kikelezo kisusuwezo bakonle kususuweza kuli kukone kukala bakone kukala mgendenge waku kuli bakone kubona kuli litapiza zwala kuli kuba ni mungendenge wa kubona kuli kwasilelezwa kuzwala kwa litapi mi ona mungendenge uswanela kutia ahulululi kapangaliko ka imba ka taha mi asamlaho lo 14 la pili mu skema ya kwa hule luhamo monse kukandekela hamgani kulumela kuli ni mukuli vati litabazendekize imba izwezi pili lwekelize mikwa yengwi yencha kukona kunolofaza kwa nkufisa hamo chwalo ni mata amskavo na kale kana mwitukiselize kuvona msevelezo wa imba ye mufumane lisevelezo zezwezi pili ze kakulifafela mashilingi alika na $36 kakweli kapa kamikwa ye kutesifa fasi ye tatama 5% machipisa hamungo lisalikwelize talu 10% machipisa hamungo lisalikwelize silela 25% machipisa hamungo lisalikwelize lishumipeli muketeli kwelizo muvata kuli mukone kukala kuikola zende zeo imba imiswalezi fama chipisa imba okuvukanili fasi kaufela mwipe kwa lisevelezo za imba kachenu kuli mukone kuikola zende kaufela
lipuranengelo wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondudu toingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukara ya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna emitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayoloka opone ushendife nawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali bali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu bali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Ndi lwazo la pili nilikande la luna kona kuli sina hane nivulera ngeluskaya kale kwa kapangaliko ka imba kuli piho isusuweza kukona kukala chole linzwile kona ili ni pale lwale kuli restocking restocking kona kuli nyifa baswanela kukala kuolekanga tutapito twinyani nukutokala kutuvea kapachwani linzwile lani palelwa kono kuyaka kutisusuka kutwisiso yaka piho isusuweza silelezo ya tutapi to tusali to twinyani mwendi chwalo mi ona silelezo swanela kutia ahulululi kuli bakone kubona kuli ona kezo yayeza hala nikupeta hala mi piho ivi hakuli ona kaloye kikaloye kakona kubona kuli kikaloye kakona kuvelekisana cholo hamuho ninako yezi kwa lwanga litapi kukona kulumelela litapi kuli likone kuhula hamo chwalo ni kwekeza. Kona kuli na haluzi vakuli skiriti sa Zambezi kiskiriti sa sifane hamali kwa sivaka kokunani likota zengata ahululuri mi kwa chisa mi pula ni ona yanela ona kwa skiriti se manako ya kweli ya ngulule December kwisa kweli yali ya tamani March nako yo pula inelanga ten kina ko yeo skriti sa Zambezi svanga skriti se skolovile ahulu mwana ha Namibia kona kuli kisi vaka kukufumane ha ahulu masa milapo moku mata mezi amunda livaka ze kolovile nako kamkana hamo choni livaka moku nani likota ze ngata ahulu luli kona kuli kuna nilinuka hamo chwalo ze swana inge nuka ya linyanti hamo chwalo ni kasaya kona kuli kiskiriti sesi nani limbule limbule ze swana inge likota limbule ze swana inge lichalano litapi lifolofolo za mwana hengi linuka hamo chwalo ni livaka ko litava za njimo zikona kuvateng kona kuli kuyamba litapi hamo chwalo ni vapoti vavayopota maskiritise vavazwelila kwande anaha kilika zetisa kapaze mema vatu ona kwa skiritisa Zambezise konolo aziva cholo hamo nitava ya kuli kuyamba kuyamba kufumane hakuli kuna ni vatu baba yamba hulu kufiteleza kona kuli ona kuyamba hulu kufiteleza kwa kona kuse kutisa ona vutatavo mwa naha ya Namibia hamo chwalo ni naha ya Zambia kona kuli kayambelo kona kakatisa ona vutata vakuli litapiza luna zikone kutofitanga kwa kuyunda tabari tapine ultoro ya mbola min wana kuli na ultoro ekabela maikuto kwa maases wana halakuli si vapala kalulo yetu na hulu ku fezari tapi zalu na kapakuzikutseza fa si ahulu ludi chwale kona likande leo mi likande linzi mapampili au na makande ya kacheno kuvani baba nani mihala epitezi mi vafumananga mapampili au na makona kulifumana ni kuipalela lona handendende mwendu kwa nifonisike kile nsilo zisaka ansha ni bonje njema muzuile chwani
luzuhile zama mtela chwanyi mwatumazi kutola
ni salwa tumezi kutola fa
akuswana lulikile
akuswani
mamoya obonye network yaruna yana fa muire
awu amskalo kona kuli hamskalo tereza
mana ni mitereza chali chwana ngofana msuku noela kuli yapo meha network bena ina hapo na cholo yo kutafa chora she
awu sasa kuno ya hulu fafasi
hulu se vashemi karofa sembola wa Hendrix mani wapita choto au fela ni watata bwana baba inzika fela neke poya akiwa ituti bayana baba sasa
abe matazi abakuzisize
makarero mu matatekero amanyi aviki
ni makarero aviki mo
ha moni minalo meri bali
me haye ke lokolire chwalo
Quinto, ele cabeça então.
Antovlela vos negra kuti kinako isifana kose ichinja kona kuli. Vatu vakakula.
Mwanga hali zwa idadi ni waliwezanga baba hulu watarimela kwa hali mwakapoweza kakara mimi
Famo mizo. Mane kwa razenso iliko nolika.
Otherwise, but not going to fast work. I know now.
I'm already going to fast back about it.
I know how to do my happy. Really happy with you. I'm going to see you. Yeah, to work in a Namu really. You go on support. Move support. I'm really motivated.
Hakuna neka hata hachwani haya bakuli hanivuleri.
Mina mpirafera kuvulera. Ampiri ukuza.
Lo pirafera kuvulera yawe. Tulisari kupazo lali za iski walikere kuvulera fera.
Kimogu inezi maupiro konurumira kaleze fera kule amule na fare tira maseo toto. Sikesa tiza hulu.
Eni. Aku kativa fera peto muni cheve kwanu.
Kami msimu ya dagoli. Trisi to no na kola maluba sikera pai baroli. Uri kile maluba sino to voice ya.
Kona fai utwala kuli ninze hande.
Mana fai utwala kuli mani mani.
Era botana ke kuli hani bulera famu mizofa ke petenge ku utwala nge ulkuna nsini katezo na famu mizofa. Chale kwani zo afisa kuvulera hulu hape.
Muri kevelo.
Lokalika.
Kimusabezi. Gini tiene babu ya musinenge. Mbumbi Yata haluri kwa yoto.
Yata.
Nomutwe musu bitumira fira kwa zaburusi na alsazi bakoluka wera.
Na mane mbumbi na elata. Zani fapane la fera ni mbumbi. Kimi nangi.
Kaka chisozo kasili moseko utwala kuli.
Kukachisa.
Nahane go kalafa. Fire munibu erebo na go kutoba.
Ni he halke ofutanga mo kutoba kikani kaka eza kuli. Haivona ni stenda. Wakautwa hozwela fande ma stenda saha wakautwa kuli kanatire luli.
Ane basiri mose na wanakuli litohoza kana ukataza kwa pama litoho mukuchiseba jwana. Kona
kubanikozi.
No kima ema ali hali mulutwaere kimu nabasi uno punyaka ozo nire ya mika zalona.
Moku ineze. Nekono ni kava hande.
Mane mukava hande. Mina vengi muveni sepo. Nuna nikolo kava ni sepo ewa mina muna sepa muna kufora kakuli. Sepo ekaile kumina vengi. Mukava na ulikakaele la.
Mana lukava hande.
Nazoto alipio za famu kwa zero. Masebeta usazi bakuli kuweza anaskama. Niheke haluzi bikuli bona bani bari emisara famu. Haba tamanga batubana limoti karazani nizo na babanga nikuti tama.
Bazi yazanga impounding.
Chole kaulo fani batoze liferanga kapachwa.
Hape foko na foni sinari seri hande kono niziba kulinga haba kutama moti kalaniyo na va ishimba. Kona kulinga holi fa bell. Inga holi fa bell. Anizibi fani kapa wazwani moti kala ya hao.
Ona kaloyo ki kalo yengu ya kukutsa mashirengi mwasupa masama. Iheba kuli kaloyo haiyo. Na sepa batereze bosukura batereze abana nizibo bene sepire nisumu ni heba kallo yo kuli haiyo ki yo chole kona kallo yen ya kutsa lukao ma kwa masana vanaweza kulivatu basumanwa inge vanule noze kola kapa mutu ya kwaeza asinali ngolo mbabone kuli mulatu wapiri ukale kuyena nikukuta kwa simba ya mbasa hai ili kuli nuveni tutali kaze kuli kanti mulao hao vulezi kuli kalo ye ya buchola haiska elumelezi kono hao fitile 5% fa sikulo ya simba ya mbaya haisali hiyo uwe na mukwaezi ili kuli vatu vani neva nakapanikano paka kambaya mbaya mutu yaka anifako to kwaezi nisike naya isinali ngolo kuti nikuze fanireza upiro kapanike naya mama ndingwe abuchwala keni tutokuli mota eva habakoni amuha mota mina nsayo lifayaka yaka mavomu yeni ezize kako mwenge nizo kulikula kwa fenia kuna ni mulao nikuli sera moti kala yani mukafuna onali karuloze na haike mina baba faba kwa ma taxi driver bali kuli mpangere mashereni na zisepo kuli neka batoto yetu na kuli hamuka famutu wo manalisa mukavuza bonje njema sha inola bukwa hizi heva hamuna haniko ni kuli mota yake itamiwe hani namali kona hani mifile moti kala kuli mwezengi mubate mashereni eza upiro pira hama kana ba eza fera kuli bonje njema baba swala kuti kona bali fefera bela watu bayoya hakuna tuseva kona kutusafo at least bakutseruka ukanzira yo chwalo yo kwa kikavo muyo kwa mutereze fali pyoze muvalire kikavo muyo mutu yo muhulu uyo itamisa bakigisa fara buchala ntoye sabweli iyo kukenye mali kayamana ntoye no inmisa wena munu uyo end up mama tolongo oboni kawe akuli lubasi lwaga luyemikai hauzuhile mwandu bana bahao bazizo kulivondate kikalulo yemye yeva lutsa kayona kono yo utuhala kulivo banana so yo utokuli onda tamina sema ni mastoks okay wewe mane ile mane bakozi mabona selu kuvealo banana mali kaya mana fari kafara zebo nolo sikase saboleli kulisiyongo yeso kweza end up so yo fumana uri so ifumana ma stocks sele kalulo yo heva kuli haiyo bakone ku italima bano shuwali koto si hulu mane kwali motikala kamba kwa kona hava feka tifoka za kuli kachimbukile
tena baizu sama 8,000 diye mafkai
ini ma 8,000
ini ma 8,000 fa en
mane baizu mane suru kwa motikala va feka 10,000
kwa bakwaiza inge baba nwa inge bakwaiza motikala
ni wasina mangola famu kwa 10,000 hayuri 10,000 diye kuli mwezi koto kikuvukereza tabolo sa bonifera unavatu kia kuli vatu bala hava ezeli kazeshwa kikuvukereza upiwewa mwivatu heva na hanipati na mungi nisike na anga kuweza kama vomu nipolwe ni kula heva tuwavangu heva hani lati kalulo yo nisike nolonga vatu kati nipula na mungi mane vai sisa mwa 10,000 vatu mwezi wakaba nuku saba takuli haga oto 10,000 daga wata 10,000 nikaifumana kai mwezi ukaba nuku saba hakutavisi jalo kuli nako beta kamba kibanana kono unaba toba hulu kunaba zari kaloze swanekezo kile bana wao unaba tutasikama hakuna tukelo lelo lutaga na valuna kako luna kuna basi sasa tutaga bana wao kuli bana wao kuba palake kwa sole ba chinchona kalo yo mane vai sasa ma 10,000 kumutu ya zari kaloze swanekezo si hulu kubare wafanga mathematics kako kuli mulemo lutari misalo masulu mastropel namo bafa illegal taxi wafi wa mtu
vamos fa taxi nali ngoro famu kwa yo illegal fare kuti ukapicha ukaribona bali bala kalwa kuli kuna ipeza extent yo nikalo kutamiwa simabona kili kalwa zwa tani mingi za tola likalwa zo kwali nekula kuda wabufulelo wa kafela mani bafuma bachinchona tekoyo bafete koyo bona hala kuli at least na halu tuvisa milupulo mwendi ekava pala kallo ya kuli lusave otherwise watu wakafela kamuno mina mana mopali kamuno wasava
fela kiniti mutu ya olisa za polisi da wolo mahanu ne
kamuno ha savi
Chiso si mane uzua kiro uzua mwa kwa jigo sifetaola Sile onele kutu mga mwele sikamai
Kuna zemukora kubuyeza.
Kono kalo mwana vaichinje fera. Mwana saki bunde.
Kono mala bato habasabika kuli. Nani bona kuli nevele bato babakwayezanga. Inge banyure vuchwala bali kanga fela makando abona babone kapa. Asebeza kapachwani. Bali kanga fela makando asebeza fa kapachwani.
Manza makando za wasaliyo fera ze kimu kwa fera kulindiwa na va traffic vao na mgafu managore kuna ni vato vazi bahala kutukimulikani kuna kalo fera evola ya hulu na hayaluna kambe kulikao fera bona nuongiwa fa sekala siswana kamba alikalo ze kamba mwenzanyi nifazo kuna mgafu managore namu endo nafani zibahala aluko kamtara kuwa mawaya kuna nikalo mwuni kama vakenela wa mawaya Harika basai safero na fire bagani bagala togomera muri kani zozi mazi batoroka zila fo bakabla kuli nani sebeti sima bwana ona kallo ya nikele nfanyi manuna akuli ni kallo yo ite bakali resera kure mama mane were muri kani kwere sima ko mutalo munde uyu tuka sisini naruka kana manzira ko aba ni amas ko zobe muri kazi mane mundimu kire tutoyete
Ape kuna ni moya?
Mama isa. Ina haya moya.
Sha?
Yo ya kupoya boshkongo yawezo tirera kwa. Karuzo bona habazibi.
Bali sobula hori habazizibize ozona ya. Abazizibize ovona yawe.
Habazizibi. Ile kabla yake ni kallo yo hene zaidi wande kuna ni musolini ba muhezi kapacho.
Hakuna mutungi balita fa hakuna hande. Hakuna hande mutungi balita fa kono. Tabene ni vala ivulira fera kuli baizo vulira kuli bona hakuna mafosa ane baezize. Kapa abanani makalulo ya neneza hezi.
Bueno, yo no ya odo hala bana sa. No tusa ngina ndika zama ze kona ko tafera mutu aska etekera. Ni fere vomwe tereri kiniti babe ni kuba baba kona puya kubona joro mababezi mwendi basekerezo. Eza iwenga tarika ze eza. Kumbala ne wona ndafaka mutarafa rwe kaka mutarabona washiko wona to kunipenge baizo na poko wone basona kuli mwendwa bafeselele zo ni bobrera yona bakali vya makaloshi sababu wona washiko kile bato bari ko hola sala kile bone mwe tereni bakali vya fakaloshi kuna hasa sevezi mutiyo kapachani sababu ni kazi kali hali ni kali mmoja mkao fera kuli kaloye mutiyo nakaya kama bomu kuli kalo tofi twakweza harachwa na kapata yunai ni fera hakika bomu kumbali sibo na bene bali fa valero ya muya nibo ina vai como que difa kuli to mutiyo otro kitachwa ni kwanu kuma bona kile sikafera hasilu sizo fera stata fera bumanalisa pero ena inzo mapukere zo nguluvukere zo kabra kabra mtiyo yeze kama bomu kono na ko ye mugulisi nero tot nafika tro fati nire yo ukavale kuli kantikiniti ntoye tata kanta ay kuli vile fera ntoye tata pale bomwe tereri abakone ko twisa kupoyo kapasiri so witumira fera bakuli akona fera sifosa haiza akona fera si eza hezi kubona kivava pira ibutreva nazo fona na kula maboko moba inezi batu bani ukora kunga mutu ona jema mbona uwike tiro na chero mutu yema ukwanire kodorika za haya azizuhile za matongo si esa witimba bona boko mukakona ko muko mano yibonje nje maveru bonanga chero kinna ko yate ono ni mwana kimozi nezi mwatu mukakoma ko mana sapa bonje njema hana kaje kufitire balumiro kiri mukaze kaigandi
bona ndikandele ni swali kuvalafa kimona yaenzi masipatela utumona ni kindwa ene yeza hezi la vutanu utumona yo na sepsize kuluka iplaya Mkuti seri kukwera ma motikala ya hae. Mi seri kuyochaisa motikala vomsala hae ne yemi. Mi kuti tabana eza hezi hola ya vlo vangu ya vusihu. Asamulaho. Alikangi lene lizuhire mahala avona. Muna kwa lili moze mashume ya manenze sirezi. Kuona kule kutahani wa seri kuno eza likangi. Muna seri kuvulela msala hae kulisi. Yenasa yo ipulaya. Kuona nga aska yo ipulaya kale. Uka chaisa motikala ya hae. Mikuti seri kukwaeza motikala ya hae kuzwa malapa. Mi seri kuchaisa motikala ya vomsala hae ene yemi. Mikuti yonana yemi fande. Mi asamla seri kuikunupa kwa silio. Matoho ya hae.
Oh.
Kwa na kulisimama matiza kwa spatera. Mi ukuluvela kuruinzi mama yema kwa tasi ma spatera.
Namusa yuzifari di mozekai.
Kwa na fonsa azifi otumusala heno na lili mozekai. Ende kuti matoba lubafu manifa lilimo lilumo lililingwi.
Muna 46 years.
46.
Halona bana. Jole fogo tu vaccine mangi. Kona puzo tu sana.
Mwende vomsala hai.
O vaccine mutu yasiyenga pira. Likaze mufera ze tata vera ze. Jole mutu yana ni 46 yo po mano yo wera mutu nikai plan niko chesa motikala ya hao mutu.
Bate?
Ona fone vai na walo na kikutoka lizima state ruli wana na yo.
Tava tenu.
Hali fasile. Kozo maungulelo.
Maungulo kapa bana bananifea matata abasambo likakuli. Taba ene utulo ya mbola neli labo nefani kapa. Botata bana. Chola unafani mutukuti usaya kuli ayoko patuso kuyomu mwikisi kama.
Kipuso mukukakai. Kai kwa ni mawela bosukulu amina. Kuli kubeka ni katengo kwa na kufumana tusu kakoli. Kikakai ni kufumana tusu. Kona halo vreda kuli musanela ko bantu kwata komkona ko yambola ngamuna ni matata. Bona kauka basalisera kego kutuso batusefera.
Chana ese bana bakayosha kuya kunikuwa okopa kuli nani botata bo bichwana mwendini fumani kuli bomsala kabana ni nyazi. Bana botata.
Una muna nimina na bolerana ni price na bolerana mana. Mutu yo vanikalo yo. Haska vanikalo ya kwa pola hate nzira yenye ki. Fela kale msuna ku tusa onata veta za sauti hakuna mtu ananilifufenge muna. Muna kimutu ananilifufa neka asika fifa kunyala. Kono wakani sikula wopita ni wamasule. Kono bashe bwana misumu yake ni sepire baba ferere. Kono muna kimutu ananilifufa hulu. Neva mina mwaisi wakalo yeo. Kamutala. Neva mina kamutala mwizi mwalifato. Toma na samutofu mana mulatu wa mina mwizi ni musizadi yomu. Mwazi wakalo mkatoeza. Eni hakuina hande.
Kwa unahani nakuzusa tovolo ni kumukunupa ni kuikunupa nina.
Mani mina hamu nakuzusa tovolo. Mwendi mina mkava ni kunyema fani kumukuza kawala. Waesu. Kinga hondi hiza chwa. Kono kutofu mana hafako mulatu wa mina atomi fumana wama analisa. Ta. Ni mulu leo fela wa mboya wasifuva muka utofa wa ya chapetiri mahali mo. Muka utofa afani fani kubuyera fela. Fani kini nyunga toho. Halu zivi kuli kili kama nyunga uzo. Wana mu yonga toho.
Eni.
Kio na yare ili pori payani na jisea.
Ofe?
Ni anzira kuna ni vene vaichise vana vani. Anzira nili side ya correctional service. Vene vaichise lote kwanto kanda asisi.
Mane kuli na iswala yo mwende.
Ne vaipele petrol. Kisera ka petrol kono vipea muliro. Bakengisa kalo ya bunyazi. Ne vanyezi kono azikuti bezo papala ni nyazi wabona. Mane ina ni brezili kandeleo kiyo mu polisa wa musuzana.
Kai koneri kwa security man.
Kina na mina security mu kari za security.
Kujeri kwa region. Hello.
Tomorrow.
Oh, wakavango. En shamtos chwan.
Chalwa za hala. Kona veza hala chwan.
Ja?
Ndio mchwani.
Nemo kulina.
Kono voice airu chalo na iru
Vatu va mulimo.
ni voice ai bon siku ni mutio kwa mizo kuna ni kuonga tena wati.
Mane nizierehile maso na fayoko na niti.
Ninzilazwa mulizwelanga.
Hamu tukuli kuyesa enge kuli kuna niseni mumatire mahanu.
Atiri. Ndoka utwala simwesta.
Kanti muswale chalo happy rolo potere misika.
Okay.
Did you know that road safety is a shared responsibility? Become a good fellow driver by keeping your tires properly maintained, controlling your speed, and always driving sober. Let us unite to reach 0 deaths and serious injuries, because together we can. This message was brought to you by the National Road Safety Council.
Good fellow driver, good fellow walker, good fellow driver, good fellow passenger.
En.
Yanisha. Ndio malomiterelize.
La mezusa nukumitolisa.
Alitumeze neruta ngenge muluzusa safari.
Mane kachego namuno sukulu amutugera bimangeke. Yuko tamuka bwera kamusoma ka bwera abosukulu ne babwera kati nirofe.
Baitete. Ni mlwate mahopitali mwabazoe. Nitesa ngambole musweli boyo. Kaza panise muzile kuyona kapachwana. Na kwenza kwala wae nikutaka fort. Saba ya dipolao. Ya muna yo ya ezekezo ya kuyikunupa mwato. Kuja moto ya hai. Los casos varios la bolsa kama ingekuwa kwa niveau. Pero mane nguleza ko yote I think mane na ovira hande ovira ni ndo ovira ni understanding munayo ni tumule kuyona. Kale bakala kuli ngata babana habaiza ngijwalo. Ngata babana batanga kusupa musari tobolo. Bola ya musali. Kama tu hai tumira ni bola ya. Yo ye na ukuli tena kwa pro musali yo. Mwendi niyo cha safara mota haya refa ndene ile ni mulekezi. Akolo ni wene ukuba ni mulekezi mota ende ayeveze fande. Leo cha safara iko na nani ya nase ni shira pa na kupakisa mota yale. Ndio kasamu lao na chai ni kulai. Halo zikuli manzi yao hapa mtai na atelize. Kingi hana aska eza hapo tako kula abate tu soka pipi da kuma polisa. Kapo kwa balovasi. Kuli ba mate ka pipi bate bato batata ao kapali pule zoza za kula muna hai. Hapo na ni step ya kuli pule zoza kako zivula pipi ba inzi mwandu. Hasta kwa kaya ndeki ya leo. Neli kama na alikira ya materi kwa nini poliele mwanko fere kwanu.
Mlenska fosa kare.
Ni mwanko fere kwanu, milolo ese kwanu yeni eka pilipili. Mara kwa la kwa mapo kwa bakata. Bana na bakala bela. Kaza bateni. Korosa ni volezi na itumela kuya muna yo. The breast man kali bakakuli haska bali mupo akula sopa nyu from abantu friend wae papa. Uwadisha kule hata kwa che mota ya mulekezi yo. Sepa nesipa mota yo kile na mulekezi yo na mota yo. Venye na azu kwa rifas. Bana habastabirifu. Asa banyemire. Yoba inyani bana banyemire. Asa nyemire mona ukwara kuweza sifika pasifika ndaba kungatipa kuitaba mamizo ndaba kungali kama kwa joro. Ni mbana habastabirifu kwa badama kusabali kuvati. Basairi walatena bamweni nake na mubula kutasana bayizanke zo ba problem sari ani wamaro ndo mwayani ngire maka bagwa ni kupacha wote rad ayo mana boyfriend do iPhone bitaninya zia hai ena apumire mu na hai mumizo mu pula
nende sire mama insa
I think neri last year
nano prafela yani wakuvidisa oil nikusitela bamona hai
neri kwa dia bumu ya mene liko pacha bawote la
how
pacha wata ushibora una pana mweniko na spot ye kutoba solero kwa mulo mwa wote la kwa
nikakuli yani kwa na sile manona sana isimulo mwa wote la
niko malamu mona hai ubakozi ninyazi hai balloveze Nikio fitasela kuba apula ko niko sahami mizo mona hai
kuna ne baba sasa vimina
bale omakande mane itero makande mane ngeno ke bayambula rafa sasa igweze mutaba yo ni muzo kama la kwaza paneni wasinyangira bani kapaneni nibe ne wanda sasa zibanga paneni bo mangi bani ni kona goli kona zeza la zeo kona goli despite kudi bupiro bwa mona yo bumakozi kono sinani vulezi bo njema yawa sikai bana bakona kusiya musare ya mufoserize ngapira ape choma mwana nani tobolo
kubona hali matobolo ne kunani maluma maveri Chana kubana ati mwende kupuzi seri kubana fela kuli acha isa fela mota ni kunu pa yena mwinga wafu mane fela lilimo ntori lumo lililingi
na bana ni ulako ti muna sakata yo mwe wae opumule mwako ozo
hasika atimela
yoka baspata but provide was down was critical
ni critical
nsepe tobolo mwende ukapira baba yaba le bilumbo likitwa mwa toho
wako na kupira kono haka pira una nevo yanga wabuka na kuzo afateni
lilumo bila lilumo kuna tapati ya toho le lilumo bana bamule na lilumo la tobolo
peto
mtami kifari heta Kuna wana kutushisa nabali heta lana apa la pali mulu ya heta ba
akona kupira na hana upira kwa oxygen yo hana kupira
kupira wako na kupira chala asapira ukava siyanga kupira wako na kupira chala asapira hana kukondoloka kona vutata
mane kimuna yo tombo yo ayo mane na usakwa ni kwato Kati da sako patoso ya kule afumane toso ka pilipili. Wana kimuna kala ustreza upiro wa girlfriend wa hai.
Musala hai.
Na ya ni ustreza upiro musala hai.
Musala hai.
No uli kira ta ko pro musala ya za wai na kanga lilumo la pili kumsupa musala hai kumuvula. Kana kanga lilumo ni na ni kucheza mota da kucheza mota da kuyema da kubeba matodi ya kuma pistol. Wao mumma kwa hero ande. Ai mumma sula ande kwa alimu kwa.
Mina zo msemu kunotsa mukutayo yezo nakeze msemu kunobolera fo. Mungantsa la butata. We mumma kona kutalimela mahalimu. Kuluske washuta voko. Nga ulusa shuta voko peto. Ni bona kuli mwendi nevele yo mwendu shutre voko ka uli ho shuta voko wapira kono hona kukondoloka. Waba se hole.
Ni bataba yabo mangiva yabo Chikongo. Kitaba ye tata kotu sisa ahulu. Kadi bakala kuli Chikongo. Ani kono ko twisa kuli kezo yale bafuasa bafumanezale. Yakama vomu kapachwani. Kakuri kuri muntaimu setave avona yale. Hani kuli na baizi kama vomu. Hata bafare. Na ni sepo ya kuli nesi kama vomu tabani ayeza hala. Nesi kama vomu luli. Mwenye jema. Kuli bani kama vomu tabani ayeza chwalo.
Mane skamba mukona hani bwezi kamba lube mama yemu kamba kibona batro holofarira pateni tire bwana bakaive achwanyiwa nakalo yo Ane kuna mtona kuweza kalika kama bomu ya kuti nieze fera ko kaze zibe chwana so ndi kaze tahanga mutu askai tekera so luna baba mukuru nabaka hapereza fera ko mane kikavomu konjino na hako tunasikato sati ndire mutore ko baba akantiri kaze tata mokwine zifera baba otu sifera
Mane haiba ulikiona tabe bazexeza yani. Kakoli dane ni kulovera kuli hansepe ulikiona tava yani. Ni chara Elusive lukali tera.
Adako ni ko tsatava yani kuli. Yera mona yale. Habe ni kuli Chikongo. Bakora ko swachwa ne mulato. Makese mwale.
Wana abahulu basipokola.
Konji mwenda iva kuli. Ma commanders weta baganta state house. Babulezi kuli. Kalolo yeya is authorized Chikongo. Utata vei fateli po mwenye jema. Ma commanders baza maisi baba posta baba ganta state house. Mwenye kasama ma interrogations. Babulezi kuli. Into Chikongo quando que era lume com lume de motivo lá que nem mari. Quando raiva kuli hakuna kalabu da mfuto wazeo. O Chikongo ni kwa kugantela hai kwa kugantela wonto. Chikongo nane zeza zoki IG IG. Kisa kwa general. Kwa kuti yena wizi kwa ndia kwa ipumulezi. Au só sanya wa mura kana news ya kuli. Kuna mo chafu male mama sasa. Ande baba gantela president. Akuru mwezi mutu ali mungati. Kono kuna ni to bani squad savona. Baba dia protect. Baba ni group ya baba ba commanders savona. It's not easy. Nalo ku commander ya ganta ya president. Avi director akuru ya director president wati. Usuna ko pia ko maba inside ko maba inside harifa. Tole sasa ko badange kuli. Tabate nane busula.
Busula.
Nene es que akoda hala bina. Kuri Kongo bakwe mulato. Ne. Koda ba si mulato Chikongo to ba koda. Ba fatele mulato.
Mwendiri bakala kuli kibona baba hulu esa mapokola kakuli. Esi zazilani ne lutreo ne kusina mapokola kwando kwani.
Ko kweza jalo minao.
Ndiye sepala ya.
Ngato.
State house kuli kasa posa bana hakiza.
Kona poza ne lovuza gafela ole ne baenzi kai. Bwana ayoke na yani mona.
Bwana balofire.
Elusive kapane balofire kapane basiyo fera fone basonera kwina.
No. State house aiko ni jalo.
Konje
bakana. Aiko na hali.
Ngato. Elusive kono lukautu alulitere kuli vona vomwetereriwa na vakavulira enkakuli vaswanela kuvulira eventually havana kukuza fera ngeo sazivili kuyeza halangi vaswanela kuvulira kona kuli lukalitera lutwe kuli vona vakavulira kulingi sene vafosize voshikongo kisikamanya
kono ugofu tukalita wazenga tono na zewa kuli nera vona nafo kuli banyakisise fera kuli mafosa amutu yo sene munyandisa za kisisi neke kaba nevire bona ne valiteni kawe nebo bona ne bakamu bona na mutu yo na yo kapachai
akuna mutu yana ile makuta uko nako bachansilumba
mina aliko tisa kuli kuti mutu yaoza kai kwa satasuma
nayo za hospital sestona en ni mautu
ake mo plate za kuzwa kwa Windu Central Hospital
bati moswale fela cholo piriwo lopotere misika
hospital
ni moswale cholo
okay.
Planning a trip from the coast to the north? Then travel with Intercape. Safe, dependable, and affordable with over 50 years of trusted service. From the 31st of July 2026, experience our new Valfus Bay to Otapi and Okahawo via Oshakati route with convenient stops in Swakopmund, Arandes, Usakos, Karibib, Omaruru, Kalkfeld, Ochivarongo, Otavi, Tsumeb, Oshivelo, Omuthia, Onyanya, Onankali, Ondangwa, Ongwadiva, and Oshakati. Enjoy 50 kg of free luggage with your journey. Book your ticket at your nearest Intercape office on the Intercape app or call 081-950-2100. That's 081-950-2100. You can also visit our Intercape office at the G Mall Valfus Bay for bookings and inquiries. Intercape. Safe, dependable, and affordable.
Mina mopola kuli mutu yasiyo hande mama ye mwanga na ainzi hande wakwana kupalela kuzama ya kuzwa kwa Windu North
tava evune vula fokia kuli mutu yoni mutu bondo nazama ma street mutu kuzwa kwani kwa Windu Central Hospital sha kapa kwa nazwa kuya kwa State House kwale kwa vula fa papira CBD kuya kwa State House kwale
mane vazama ya
everybody kakasa abamuvoni
mutu yani hanise pikuli nazama ile mapunu kuyoza kwa spatalize kwa State House ndibona kuli nazama ile ngatinile hesa hayo fita kwanje liko yotubula hanise pikuli nazama ile mapunu
nikupa bali moto
kaba nazama ne mapunu kaba kuna ndibene bamuvoni ne bakaliza mapokola
wanaona fona ni kuno tona wani kupa mali mota luku tumahari akona kuna ni mtu nena sona kumuvona musebo mana mina nebazama ya batu neri busiulu likapa
foka ekakule sene nako ni yani neri nako ya pumulo neri pumulo mangi yani neri Easter inge neri nako ya pumulo na hupula kuli nekunani pumulo kona kuli nako ya pumulo batu bazama yanga inge mamule nengi
bazama ya batu
bana nuhanga kuzwa mamule nengu ya kwali bakazisiri
busucho kona bakantela uli batu bao
hani sepi kuli nazama abusiwe yani nazama abusiwe
nazama abusiwe
mwende nazama abusiwe kona ni masikamu vona
bati nyakuri chwalo kapa ulati mwendi kwa pa mimi kwa mtona pa mezi sina bana bagantira kwa teni mwendi baba ganta mwendi bana basa kwa gate kwa mwendi mwendi chwalo nyakana kwa lo pa mani mwatakwale kama kupa au bati nyakuri chwalo mina security yanto ya State House aina ma cameras tari mameno kamukara
kona hani kula kuli neri nako ya pumulo mwendi batene babona kuli akina ko ya pumulo kona kuli hakuna kupate hahulo Tona mwende ni makamera zine basatari mikuri baba tahaki bomangi baba zama yake bomangi.
Ngakuri foi kana ukona ngakuri mwina pamizile kuyemwe baba ngati kwa bwana Let's get one. Let's get Kona ko lichwalo au. Ka ofera ni vaba vile kifaa bakitini ka ofera wala unova wa kama bwana.
Ha? Chalo sebe asha ya.
Ono mayo ni ngurela kwa na mutomo fela ya cameras kwa na mutomo yo.
Au.
Mutomo kima cameras kwa kintu yesa visa yani. Isona kubona kuli nto ifika mbaye isona kule mwa kuli nto ne baba yo chiro na nto ne zamacho.
Akole mane bana kwa kulwa musevezi kibona baba bana ba duty that day.
Kule mana kuna vene baenzi fa duty.
Ha mina sit house ki always ba tell ma ganta sit house mina ha. Ki always sit house always.
Mani ka lo fere ba ta ko esa.
Nini bona ka set house ye bana ko kwa kwa mayare. Yeye ni kwa kwa parliament ya. Ma porta wangu kwa melo tswada yo na ye fato de mantu fato na get bande baba polisi. Kwa baba hizo na fani. Kale koka kucha ni kona.
Elusive yawe kona ni batululi tereka kuli kulovelo matava ye kizenga hulu baba mbavulela kuli mawe kitava ye baba mbali mawe kitava ye kakuli ni natava ya kuli ne kuizofu mane hamuna yana inze mapuno kwando yavo mwetelele wana nensa abone kuli kitava ene bakona kubazwisa musolele swalelele kuliona fofera eni wa suspended nine nensa abone kuli kitava bakona kweza yo
Kwa na yota bayo.
Alukali tela lone.
Malo vale sababu ni la bune lale. Ane mweza congratulate we number one ni livezi kuvulea dina hate.
Ne mlivezi.
Na alitu mimi kwa kumalabu director wo. Ni kwa mawu to head of investigation and prosecution. Is equivalent to a commissioner kapa director.
Kima director, not my deputy director.
Equivalent to a director. Akima deputy director, ma ACC, but that is court. Akima director, ma ACC, that the data why ACC you process to now. Konos to savu head of investigation and prosecution. To level 10. I look at command to my ministers. It's more it is equivalent to
director.
Try because says I could wouldn't want to could what I force so keep on somebody about Fereza. Come on, investigate
my investigations.
Come on, investigation. You know, must want any fuck you are cool. Kola tabeza kada marikolo. Mana muruti eza kuli ba manana muruti yo ba subject ya ba nana ba pasa hande kapa utande physics kapa economics kapa English kapa skamai. Mumpa promotion ya principal. Ja? This guy is first call of 4. I lot of photo. So how principal. Mungabe score kala perform ande. Wakati already kama mwa subject ya nalo tanya English. Nguzo hateli mutimu ya icon.
Tena kuyumba baituti.
Mwa msamoji mwenye mama mesi ya kona uluta fari swani. Kuvala bana swani after when they was performing excellent. Go principal. Go what I will tell you so that we have a promoter with our administration. Nikiwa samutiumu yasa kukuluta kulikwenda toba mtu wa watoto toe.
Mtere mane mgabali angana chole so bali angana banana.
Kerkin testo ni boy number. Boy number perform investigation. hava navo tata chero maswata ni saki wakuli wanafaa wakange baza nge wafuma assignment msoja ya kwa investigate kama chune za bwana bwana na wakanga wafami sirija kama junior wa bwana ofuji busuma expect performance ya ACC kulikaba excellent happy Nisoko kwa artist kumbe ninto kuna ninto no tukoza propose my education yako yemwe yakuli maloti la kuno kola kaba performance sabona nikia bakuba tena kwa yemwe mele kia banga bolo fa fada dialo hakuli it doesn't make sense yakuli bonto manali survive first class laws kai bakala kuli kwa sababu first class state mulito to alwa sasa kwa subject the advisor kwa subject advisor kwa America kwa maluti ya kwa slide kwa sasa baba basa pasante kile what have you that magere mvura ya future
mane bakai hana yone vile wana maluti mopale bakai lumera kuli chale foko tinge ba holi sachwani yani yana ni bana basiko ba pasa bangata kena ya hola ukana
performance
ni yo de sola kuma kula at least fa performance de so ya kapa performance ya kuje
mane ne batre ku halaka no yo ya mugurezi bari swani voice inspector ene batoeza vigilante patrofu na uri ngudula ni mulut ya lota handinde na lota natural science so bora kuli muluti ha qualify fa kwanda baba museba toga uri bati ona yoki ya bana kutamiselo yemi ndio nayo kile hamuka muzusafa bile mweze expect mko tisakano katoeza kallo ena bapara yo tikira so toga no gutu wewe tata init kantru musiete no na bona na tawo na yo akoli baba na manarisa kwa bazama isi niko soka no tokwa bazama isi baza fela administration ifera baza administration kuliyo ina kaula ya administration saka wana advise mwanzi qualified wali toto mo alote subject ya akoni kama mama investigation mo kaula hai but as long as the farmer investigator gona nibona ba is highly compensated kama kwa ya performing excellent isini kumusamu to musozo wana aeza nikumfata sosa kwa hela oya haya ako kama competition kuti niyo mungu ayofita bomanyi boy number of fan niena ayobona niena ayoba niena kwa pata boy number na niena ka computer tani na nive kwa pata boy number tole fa habagari babaye tusikama ngakusana kama nalo bana unachana kuli no akuba ninto any case yo is investigate have successful kuli you zaba is the hand ndende kumbe watu ni ma extra enumeration fa case sababu ni telefone kazi ko vile ko jefa kazi competition nduli fo kuli any case yo swedi when now is by whatever the why is itabu na la sala kuli ye ulikia rudi wa upeleke kwa mu excellent bakusema liko ngema kesema tula mwa ndio na mko yani bakusema na 1 million ya kusoma lizo thank you very much that's it but kwa sala ya usapa 3 isini kusaba investigate ni kufa za maisi sare ko nazo wa tumela bora baza deserve ruli
na baeza msebezo wa mtuna baza deserve ruli maana alikuwa turista kwa kwa fenda wa deputy director wa commission wa sonela ndio makosa kwa kuli kwa basi ni tulo zoza kwa mtu wa basi sasa administration na kwa sababu kwa part ya investigation kama ulifanya haba sasa investigate esi but like
Father eyes are investigate. Kono twale mukatama case ka ofera na aka kuma juniors.
Bona yona bakaeza fela head. Kona basayeza amsevezi.
Mali sisa afọ kuri bona head of investigation and prosecution. Kwa sisa afọ kuri ma juniors ba investigate ba case. Kasa mwasa zile investigated ata kuona. Then ibona ba afavo Dr. General. Dr. General na kwa kusa kuona na kwe. Kasa zima kwa siwaje IG kwa kusa kuona. Prosecuted. Kwa zexwe. Ala kwa feku zexwa. Twale Eso por no para ver direct maten mwendo na kesaba.
Kwa nona bana wale mwende bakaeza twalo.
Na pana kwa mwende pa press ko ya manyani ya Nigeria yani. Kena bwana kwa hiyo polisi au mjwale na alumia makesi ende bwana kwa ne am global. Ayo baka teriko to compare my boss right kwa bakesaba mwa no akali tulo. Hey, nani Constantino.
Kuta kuno yakali tulo chwani.
Kuta kesi ali zalo haya ni riski. Kuna watu bana ni tulo.
Yense baba sinali tulo.
Sinali tulo.
Awa. Pasaba. Ni bakuno fa bana ndi tulo kulibona bakuno yange bayoweza. Pateso.
Baba costa baba simple case. Si baba simple salary. Small salary.
Ni kuli hani kodi kushwela, hani kodi kushwenga sina stulo. Baba na ndi tulo nge bayinzi fere nge bapira.
Elusive. Kaya kwa na kwa nice.
Male usana ninako 15 minutes.
Ni kwa le mopi tamu ndo kila sala ni bwana.
Ensha. Ni wapita, your time to shine is now.
Sima ndo mbata kuswala bo mai.
Kwa Hendrix.
Mwa swala lo. Ndio kale ke terutereze.
Mwendilige ko baswala lobona baba kala ba.
Não foi bom pita. Não foi bom pita
só. Calma fera. Vou pita bako na kuswala fa mhala wa mina.
Não foi bom pita só kanena. Ruteni.
Ensha. Bye. Ona kuliki mizuzu yeli 14 siyalezi kulilukone kukena. Mwahola ya pili kapalukone kutofita kwa mafelelezo a program ya Luna. Kona kuli aluvane lubatevo Hendrix ki mazazi fo selukonde kutotona nivona. Mi lutwe maikuto avona nivona kulivali. Atava emiluka mizamati hanyani. Asamlaho lu 14 la pili. Moske mwa kwa hone.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Lipuranenge no wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maundu tuto ingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile. Oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana. Onongeshe fa ya pumbwa kukaraya kovano. Okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu konda doi nawa. nuneudo o tukwetera o speciala ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamwiri nawa ningekwata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora 3 mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile ko mberewa nora 3 mbali o 3 o mafelane Eagle FM the eye
en shangwe Motors Chan.
Hamda ni namto mtu akijitume kwa kudufuta.
Ensha. Nikachana mami filesi vakauri muswala wa Hendrix ni wana.
Okay.
Bato feleleza kwa mizuzu esesi alezi kwa.
Zati?
Ni bonja njema ni mama sole.
Okay. Vaeziza hamda na itumela kuwa na heva kulivatereza fa. Na itumela kwa kulifasiva ka festival. Nina nesa nito mohire gachenu kulia.
Nesa mwito wele ni gachenu wa hamana kwa nsa kuya famoya.
Hulu.
Mani aluska milivala gachenu.
Sikoda. Kuhade kuto chwalo da itumela hulu numerisa vavatereza kautela. Vatereza vavasepahala va FM. Ni vatu kaufera kwa makozo na alipati amane baba utua poya hetu nege kuli alifika utua kuli luswala fagi kachedu kapa mwe luvulera kaufera zelu kavulera
mane kachenu nivulera kuli luambozi litava zetalu tava ya pili neli bakwaeza babatamiro asamla kufumana nge basweli kukwaeza nge banule vuchwala yabo veli lwambozi tavo yabo shikongo anza pane mu YouTube
skai utwa bwenye skala tele la makande
kona kuli voshikongo ne bazwisizwe musebezi swalelele mwakweli ya kandaho ni kona kuli kachenu piho lutwile kuli ne kuvile ni mukopano neva katengo ka Security Commission kona kuli vavulera kuli nakuvile ni mukopano mini vavize vo Shikongo vavaizofa maikuto avona kwali nekulavona ne vaizovulera kuli vona havana mafosisa kwama taveneza hezi yani kwandu yanaha kona kuli chale kuvile ni ngambolo ya kuli vene balize bafile maikuto kwa makuli haba utwisikuli tava eking haivona hala kuli ivelwe fama heta avo Shikongo hakusika fumanwa mapokola vene basonela kubafa musevezi mafosa kisika manyi ni kona kuli nifelelelize nilikandela Zambezi Brim kuna nipiho ebafile va Zambezi Regional Council kwa malipatiso zene vaezize mwali nuka nivona kuli ni masa alona mokuvanga nilitapi me kufumane hile kuli hakusana litapi na hakusana litapi kona kuli kuvile ni mulelo wa kukona chale tamana hansika itusaka kuli report ivulera kuli basonela kweza restock chale fata mafawa ya restock kona fo iningangami hapele libezi kuvuza baterezi vakavani kuli chale fava vulera basonela kweza restock ma fingerlings alitapi kiku yoleka tutapi nyana nikutovea mamezi aluna kapachwani kakuli basusuweliza cholo hamoho ni bayambi kuli ba chincheka yambelo kakuli hae vaenge vazola pili kuyamba mavasoli kuyambela nakoni yeba bayamba aluka ofitanga lilimoze ketalizoho kuzwa silimose haluna kubanili tapi
okay ya kasola fatati yale ha yale ya Boshikongo
ya Boshikongo ni nani vule skuli ya Boshikongo luli telefe abo mwetereri wana kuli wana batovule kuli senesieza hezi kisikama inselestisize kuli babazu samu sevezi swalelele kisikama inkona kuli yo kaofela alu nafa kuli luvulele kawa fali kuluvelo kava kukuluvela hakuna abu niti handi kwa matava
kiditu na miuto aluli na miuto.
So
lukute fali tapi. Nani vona kuliva muso. Kapa vona vaka tengo katolopo. Ya katepilo. Vasudra vona kuliva. Ele tapi nessa fumane risade, nessa fumane rápido, nessa fukuzeha. Vazi papalele kaku yebisa ku yamba swalelele de haikeli kwelize ze ketalizo kapambani kufumana nzila ya kutalitati mamasa akwamukunda ona maponi kona zedi vona kuli basura kuyeza ko vona ba tawu kanso kuli kuvuleri wekuli atu vanoyamba kono iga vayamba kabo iya kapaka kuvavalera vatu avasepahali uvugata vatu avasepahali vakona kuyamba mani kuyamba ikuunga nima mosquito nete tunyandi twale tolulova la tona twaminagi uyo shimberera twalo ndivumbala twalo ale ivona kuliva town council vaveona mushao twalo basike kakuli vatu kakungu vakakona kumbulera kuli havakona kuluiri sakutali chokune uchanga kono mulao
nivona kuli vasonela kwambolisana ni vatu ko vatolokela kuli vaotwise kuli kalulo eva vata kuli eza haleye ke avutokwa hulu kuli kaofela aluna ni vanu vasikapepwa kali vakone kutofumana litapizeni kutoikola litapizeka kuli haluka apihela kuyamba chwana inge aluna vasikapepa kali elimbututo za aluna hesu lika tozikandekela ngafela kuli mama na hulile nga achatapie vizwa zambezi brim kabuli bona hava na kutofumana litapisa nchele vatu vasonela kutwisisa fela kuli selunzi mwa ye mwana vavulenanga masikuwa kuli seri dire situation seri dire situation kubona vafa nako yeto fitafali limozeke talizo zavasonela kuviraela vatu kakuli hape haki chale brimu masilozi kifi ki mbufu nsingi mbufu
yale ama yayo yale
nto ki
nakatenge eba isingi nakatenge kono na yale ama yayo tola yoda
wakaofela zona zinani mayayo for Hendrik
yale yesu kwatedi yale bo balanisa
na tapena na iliva ngona esi ndikavulela vasinengela vanhu loteli tapize okay na mulume sina uziva ngweshi na iziva na nembele na iziva chale kwali tapize ze hanela kuswana ze vo mbufu vo peto ni ferero na foko zeo chale hanizi zivili tapiza okulikili tapiza mfutamai hanizi bima bezo azona
makina ashwele zivafera mulumesi ndombe
ni ndombe niona na iziva
niyo vakulikiona ona tona mobizilize haye
nembele
kona kuli numbala wale hanizi bazizo bona
nina hanivuzivi wano niziva fera kwa teni kapenta
kapenta
kona keniziva
kona kuli nemutokwa kuli lulike kusingaje kapateni kusikulula kuli vatu bo vasomera kupirera kaona nako tati yako zibona hala kukuze hakitwaji
mane nsi nkakule sini nako yalu nafa kela lusi yali lafa mizuzu kakule valufile mizuzu yemilalu vavasonela kutaha kola ulisoluna nifa mizuzu yeke talizo nikona kuli mufile maikutu amina Kukwahezi.
Kukwahezi,
Ni kukwahezi.
Vati. Mama la lisama mle na sulozi.
Akuswani sendika.
Ona terminology yo ni usafiri kukwahezi.
Kukwahezi.
Etikona.
Akuswani selole kandati. Silozi hakuswani. Mane, alisivi kulitava eni livalanga chaneka kuli nivulelanga kuli. Lizazileli nguluswanela kutoinela program yaka ya 2023 hanto kala famoya. Chole hapa kimi na vao hapa ni mina hamulutwa. Anizivikuli mukakala lili kulutwa.
Dizi baskolo paku koleka kushere dikuli di leke fodi hali ya maema hapa hami. Kona skolo fe dizi kusona hami zivi kapa diga kwa nipa liri. Kono lukava hamo kema vilaela. Diga phone ona yeo ya smartphone.
Nikikwavuta kwa hulu kulika ufela aluna lukone kutoteleza program yani. Ingen salovanga silozi. Mama. Anizivi kapambane nikatavela nikuiteleza na mwende nikatoivea nikuyo ina kwale kwa hule. Nikuyo kutahai kafela.
Chole birthday ya station ise. Kuti ivanga mwako erimagi?
Inga kima Juni. Inga kima Juni.
Bakeli sakutoka kodi teleza. Kodi rekuluza unakalulo yeo.
Ninge ma Juni. Saina nilidi mozeka 7 years.
7 years. Aha.
Kele kahula kasizani kavati. Kakuli nafana hanto kala nikakwansa lili mozene.
Akele kahula.
Kele kahula. Onafa kava kalanjo vati. Kava malanjo.
Lili mohazi tezi ya peto. Butu wahula.
Hulo lori.
Kusona station dikitoa lofera. Kono kava hamo holi na kaze imani mkava na kwenye. Mwezi sanibi kataza hulo na ko.
Mane lukadi tena.
Bakeli sakuli ma program kampera. Kama telezi. Kama kona station isera saka seo. Sesi kona kudikonka. Hulu.
Bamakande ni wana ulikele vaitu kuseza.
Mchangwe.
Ensha.
Ni tumezea hulu kwa kuni
kwa kumihupula.
Kwa kuni hupula lemuha kulima tuse mtole hate.
Ensha. Neme na chwalo.
Ni tumezi.
Bye. Lo tova hamo kamsona kweswana kuna maschaba mana siseli kozo. Bye, kamso.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranengeno wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maundu tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshefa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu konda doili nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendife nawa nokumona oijamoili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali bali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu bali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
While you are busy enjoying your lunch, while you are busy having some times from 1300 hours, take time and listen to OTR News Bulletin.
On the Radio News Analysis, we go beyond the headlines. We don't just tell you what's happening. We ask why it's happening, how it affects ordinary Namibians, and what it means for the country's future. We examine the structures behind news, connect policy to people's lived realities, and bring in expert voices to make sense of where Namibia is heading.
You want to get into touch with global governance, global diplomacy, economic relation, trade, statistics, human and infrastructure development, and you want to see how policy planning and policy implementation is connected in Namibia, make time and listen to OTR from 1300 hours to 1430 with Happy Juju.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Well, as you can hear there, that was okay. Dwight is it's Dwight speaking, and it's not happy. But nonetheless, welcoming you guys to the On the Radar for this particular Monday session. Wherever you find yourself, you're tuned into the number one talk radio station, primarily that being Eagle FM. I do hope that a lot of you obviously have adjusted very well, specifically for this change in weather, and primarily for some of the particular, wow, that's a bit loud, for some of the particular climatic conditions. I am interested specifically for later this week, just to give you guys a little bit of heads up. There's a couple of webinars regarding climate change and the potential of El Nino. I'm still looking forward to the Thursday one, but there's one today later. But we'll be bringing you some of the developments that will be coming through from that particular dimension. However, wherever you find yourself, this is the home run. This is where we ultimately give you some particular interesting dissections, unique dissections and interactions that also help to bring further understanding for some of the discussions. If you have not had the opportunity to look through or peruse through the particular Villager e-paper platform for today's particular session. Just to give you a little bit of heads up, there is, spoiler alert, in today's particular conversation, and it actually starts off immediately right now. Looking at our first particular engagement here for today's menu, we speak to the economist from the Similar Storm investment firm, Mr. Almandro Jansen, who has the potential to share with us some of the key indicators regarding the strong July hospitality statistics and performance of the sector, which forms part of the overall tourism industry of the country. Now, some of these particular key scenarios have been that July 2026 itself is technically leading in a massive recovery strategy or recovery trend analysis that has actually started since May 2026. This means primarily the highest level of beds that were booked or occupancy rates for beds and rooms booked throughout the Namibian hospitality landscape. But before more on that, we actually take a listen to this engagement. And taking the time this morning or this afternoon to talk to us here on Eagle FM and on the radar, we are joined by Similar Storm's economist, Almandro Jansen, who is here to help us sort of like understand some of the nuances that come through from the latest hospitality report. That's now the July 2026 report. Almandro, I'd like to thank you for taking the time. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
If we start off sort of like in terms of looking at the latest hospitality results, or let me say statistics, not results, because results makes it sound a little bit electiony and stuff like that. But if we look at this latest report, it speaks in many scenarios of the strong growth or the strong performance. Is it good to say growth, or is it good to say performance for the hospitality sector, which is a dimension of the overall tourism sector?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it as performance, because we're seeing that the hospitality sector in Namibia, the tourism sector, it's really starting to outperform even pre-COVID, pre-pandemic figures. So we're really seeing that this is happening, and obviously there's been a lot of positives contributing to this. I think the first one that's really contributing to the outperformance for Namibia is the airline accessibility for Namibia at this moment in time, because a lot of airlines have opened their doors to making sure that Namibia is on their radar and on the destination list, the latest one being the Swiss airline Edelweiss. So that obviously opens up doors to once again to our favorable group of tourists, the Germans, the Austrians, and the Swiss citizens coming through for all of that. So that really contributed to that. A lot of air accessibility has been what has put Namibia on the radar. And then obviously secondly, we've seen that there's a trend happening when it comes to European premium leisure travel post-COVID, especially influencers. A lot of people are looking at having low human density visits to countries. So this obviously contributes in Namibia's favor, especially with Etosha, the Namib Desert, and Damaraland, and the Skeleton Coast contributing to this. And then I think the last factor helping Namibia for its substantial good performance for July is the Namibian dollar is weakening towards the euro, and obviously a lot of our visitors come from the European countries. So a German or a Dutch traveling coming to Namibia, having more purchasing power to buy certain exclusive experiences, this obviously helps them at the end of the day.
Yep. And obviously some of those key things is what the statistics also sort of like encompasses and includes. But if we also look at the particular numbers itself, obviously you've cited that a lot of the factors speak towards, the opening up of the skies, okay, not the skies. That's also a little bit incorrect, because primarily that would mean the skies were closed. But if we've seen, this pandemic or post-pandemic recovery rate, it seems like, the appetite for places like Namibia, like you cited, are becoming more and more. I want to get into the second question specifically, the one about does this spell a strong positive forecast primarily because the tourism sector has been one of that most if I can call it overly inclusive sectors, and especially if we can consider these particular pressures from the US immigration policies that have influenced fuel and potential flight costs.
Yeah, so obviously the good news is for Namibia is that a lot of these current tourists that are entering our Namibia is a lot of the hospitality sector is pre-booked. So all of these kind of tourists that are arriving now already booked the end of last year, during last year. So that's what a lot of them happen. So regardless of the jet fuel prices or the oil prices that's affecting airline tickets now, a lot of them already booked their destination out being to be Namibia, and obviously all of this. But so that's what contributes to that. And now with the favorable euro for them, it also contributes to their purchasing power when they're here. So they don't really feel it that much. It's probably only those that drive around with the different vehicles, the rental vehicles, that maybe feel it. But overall, the U.S. tariff policies that's come into place, it doesn't really substantially affect the European traveler, because what we're seeing that Namibia is becoming more of a premium traveling destination. So if a higher income earner in Europe is facing pressures, they don't really, or the economy is feeling economic pressure, they don't really feel at the end of the day, if I'm a high earning European citizen, at the end of the day, I'm still going to travel. I'm still going to have my leisure travel and make sure that I get my luxury goods that I want at the end of the day. So they don't. The target market that's entering Namibia is not really feeling the brunt of the economic environment of the global circumstances.
Yep. And obviously, things like the flights, I've also seen, because I was recently in Zambia, it seems like the appetite is there even across cascading into the rest of Southern Africa. So we are potentially seeing, this massive wave. Almandro, I want to throw a little bit of a spanner into this particular dimension, because in the report itself, the 4 regions of Namibia were cited, specifically the coastal, the northern regions, the central regions, and the southern regions. Just particularly in the analysis and the data that Similar Storm had access to, is there any particular sort of reason why we haven't assessed the eastern region of Namibia?
Well, it's basically just based on the statistics that we get from the Hospitality Association of Namibia. So they really just focus on those key regions that are all basically put together in all of these regions. So I think the northern regions obviously spanned across, even covering the eastern parts, and then once again the central part also covers the central eastern part, and then obviously the southern region. But so everything is kind of put together in that sense. But the eastern region, here and there, it will still get good attractions, but mostly parts of the Kavango River, those type of things, Katima side, all of those lodges still get a lot of tourists going to that side. But most of the time, that is in the rainy season or the raining parts where there's a lot of water happening, water flowing down. When it comes to July and we're entering August, September, that's when the dry seasons start hitting, and that's where we see that the northern parts of where Tosha is, a lot of the water holes or the water areas start drying up, so water holes become really a scarcity, and a lot of animals migrate to the water holes where there is. So that's where tourists can see all the wildlife that they want to see. So there's really a concentration at these water holes of wildlife, and that's why we're seeing that the northern parts are really starting to pick up, and the central parts, the same story. Central parts, a lot of tourists use Windhoek especially just as a one-night stop layover before they go to the various destinations, of it being the coast, the south, or the northern parts. So that's what. So I really can't speak to the eastern part. It's all concentrated and covered in a central database in that sense.
Yeah. And some of the particular key attractions, if we step into our last question in terms of the hospitality itself, it's a good thing that you gave that description of the clustering sometimes of the outlets, meaning where the demand would be for beds and for overnight stays would be clustered. This obviously speaks well to Namibia's natural features like the Sossusvlei, the national parks, and so on. I'll leave the last part specifically in terms of, is it safe to assume that the central and eastern parts, of the country would have to play a catch-up role in trying to get their own natural features, like what is scattered across the country? But do we obviously see that the national parks are still playing a pivotal role? Is there something that is sort of like the key driver in attracting all this tourism attention for Namibia?
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of the key drivers, because it's one of those things that these various tourists travel for. They want this exclusive experiences of being able to see the wildlife, being able to see the Sossusvlei, one of the global attractions, the Fish River Canyon. All of these contribute to Namibian specific reason why tourists would travel here. So, and especially also Etosha and all of that contributes to it being luxury and exclusive experiences there, and that's what a lot of people are starting to want. They want exclusivity. They want to be able to experience nature where low human density is, and Namibia is one of the lowest density populated countries in the world. So that obviously just helps that, because you can literally, outside of Windhoek, you can, between Otjiwarongo and Okahanya, you can literally experience, and there's no one around you. And that's what the tourists want. They just want that exclusivity, because the rest of the world is so overly populated. They just want this experience to themselves.
So it's almost like an ability to hide a little bit for a few weeks or a few days, and then they would find it best in places like Namibia.
Exactly, just to escape away from the world's hustle and bustle, and just be able to take it all in.
Yep. Almandro, I'm going to ask you to play a little bit of a weatherman just in our conclusionary remark. Specifically, where do we see this heightened demand going? And obviously, if we look at some of the key measurements that the statistics highlighted, was that the occupancy was like at the 60 to 65, close to 70% in across most of the regions. Yeah, I'm now quoting the northern, the coastal, and the southern regions. Are we seeing more potential, how can I say, an avenue for new participants, new bed and breakfasts, backpackers, and accommodation facilities to be able to come online to try and give more for that last 40%, 35%, give or take?
Yeah, because if you look at the major places where a lot of the tourists travel to, the northern parts, Etosha, and even the coastal part, Walfish Bay, Swakopmund, there's a lot of limited accommodation for tourists to stay. So when it's peak season, there's a higher occupancy rates, and there's not a lot of accommodation available, and especially now also with the economy picking up, so there'll be a lot of business travel also coming into Namibia. So we really need to look at having more accommodation facilities made available, especially if we're going to kind of balance the scale between leisure tourism and business travel, because of Namibia's attractiveness for business and also the landscapes of this. But now, as we move into August, we're going to see that the northern parts are going to start picking up, but that's going to be more local because of a lot of activities happening in the northern parts, especially with weddings, all of that taking place in this period of August, September. And then as we move into, that's also the last few months of international tourism. And then when we start moving to October, November, December, that's when the SADC travel is going to start picking up. School holidays, a lot of people are traveling back home to the coastal areas or to the northern parts, and that's where we're going to see that the local tourism of Namibians, South Africans, Botswana, all of those picking up, and we really see that it's kind of a transition from international to local travel in that sense.
Yep. Almandro, if there's still something you wanted to add that I might have forgotten to include in our discussion, you can still do so before we say goodbye.
I think we've really covered everything, and I think once again Namibia is just becoming a really attractive destination for both for leisure and for business. So we really need to make sure that we capture all the markets that's going to come our way.
100%. Thank you once again, Almandro.
All right, thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Now, coming back there from the particular engagement, as you heard it right there, and just getting into some of those particular details and statistics that, we did brush over it. Don't worry, guys. We did slightly brush over some of the stats, but much of the visitor origins in terms of the demand that Namibia has been collecting or primarily experiencing in that month of July and its particular performance, because if you look at performance, basically you would have to compare it sometimes against something, and obviously this has been the 2019 and 2025 periods in relation, or basically in relative to the 2026 month. Now, visitor origins and primarily was driven by European demand. This obviously took a look specifically at where most of the visitors came from. Leisure travel dominated the much of the particular new arrivals in July. This is as 97% of the visitors from outside of Namibia were for leisure travel. Now, and that also speaks towards the particular scenario in terms of what Namibia is seen as, primarily as an escapist route. Basically, not to say that people are escaping from something bad. Escapism is, you're stepping away from your busy lifestyle, and you just need something to something basically to take your mind off the serious part of your life. The highest leisure share of any month was obviously occupied or achieved during the month of July, and that is for 2026 alone for the year. European travelers dominated this particular cluster of the visitors. This would have been from the DACH, so this is Switzerland, Germany, and Austria together. It's known as the DACH. You've got France, Italy, the UK, the Benelux, which is Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg together. Scandinavian countries collecting basically the Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and as well as also other European nations combined, which accounted for at least 65% of all beds sold in July of 2026. Now, total beds that were sold in July stood at 77,107 across the 67 properties that were mentioned or that were measured, and that the German, Austrian, and Swiss block of countries were or featured as the most dominant source market at 33.23% of the beds that were sold, while the Benelux cluster of countries, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, came in at just below 10% at 9.98%. France accounted for at least 7.47%, which is actually strong for a single country, basically featuring in this cluster of visitors coming from one side. And then you had Italy at 4.35%, while the US and Canada combined came at 4.36%, and the UK and Ireland together at 3.74%. Now, stepping away from this particular dimension of looking at trade-related dimensions or trade-related discussions, we step into a conversation specifically looking at the recent SADC or 46th summit of SADC heads of state that concluded back in last week. Now, this saw ultimately the South African president, that being Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, taking over chairmanship specifically of the organ, and that's now into the next particular calendar year. Now, we speak to two international experts. One would like to be known as an expert, the other would like to be known as a scholar. Both of them basically are academics in their own right, on what this messaging of SADC speaks to in terms of projecting for the future of the bloc. We take a listen specifically first to Mr. Wade Henkert, and the international relations expert, and then it is followed by Mr. Rikisi Masiku, the international relations scholar.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. To kick it off, when we're looking at regional integration and global unpredictability, the renewed push for regional integration under South Africa's chairmanship is a convergence of internal ambition and as well external pressure. SADC has always pursued market and infrastructure integration for decades under frameworks like the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan and the SADC Vision 2050. However, we can see that growing geopolitical volatility, protectionist shifts in major Western powers like the United States, and huge disruptions to the multilateral supply chains have accelerated this timeline. So there is a deeper need for regional integration. And this is viewed as no longer as an ideological goal, but an essential strategic hedge to shield Southern African economies from the external trade shocks that we see happening more often. As we focus on Namibia's approaches to resource localization, especially focusing on SADC's resource localization agenda, with a calculated interest and strategic caution, we understand that given Namibia's structural import dependency on South Africa, there's a huge underlying tone of significant majority of consumer goods, energy and processed commodities that originate from South Africa. As we can see, even in the current administration, Namibia wants to avoid remaining captive by the South African economy and its market, especially its manufacturing hegemonic influence over our economy. From a Namibian perspective, the resource localization must translate into a tangible domestic beneficiation of its own critical minerals. We need to also focus on offshore energy, especially when focusing on green hydrogen initiatives and growing the value chains that will help Namibia stabilize its own niche markets and move away from its dependency on South Africa. When you look at the conflict resolution in Mozambique and Madagascar, we see there's lingering dynamics in Mozambique and Madagascar. This highlights the distinct limitations of SADC's security architecture, and it calls for a need to change these. In Mozambique, the insurgency demonstrates that military interventions are required and needed to suppress the overt violence that's happening within the country. It also signifies structural root causes within the security architecture of SADC. The exasperation of unemployment and the unequal distribution of gas revenues is creating huge instability in the country. And this is overlooked within SADC's security architecture. When we're looking at Madagascar, the challenge is primarily the institutional rather than the military aspect. When we're focusing on recurring elite political rivalries and the constitutional fragility of the country, we see that SADC tends to deploy reactive mediation rather than proactive or structural diplomacy strategies to assist these countries to overcome their insecurities. And this is key for SADC to start evolving into a regional bloc that understands underlying social insecurities, economic insecurities, and filters that through into the security architecture of the region. When we're looking at SADC as a regional example for peace and stability, it is considered as one of the most stable regions in the world. It's a key cornerstone for Africa, especially when focusing on regional economic well-being and stability. SADC also benefits from a shared history of liberation movements and has successfully prevented cross-border wars between its member states. However, its conflict resolution model remains heavily constrained by a strict doctrine of state sovereignty and mutual regime protection. There is also an underlying diplomatic culture that prioritizes elite consensus and formal order over the rights of the people and the enforcement of domestic democratic accountability. And this will eventually create further internal governance crises and an underlying simmer of tensions between the people, the citizens, and the government. So it will be important to see how current administrations within SADC understand the underlying issues of its people and how they can actively solve those problems. I thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity to be part of the show and to be part.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and our listeners, Ricky, here today on Eagle FM, and specifically to help us understand some of the particular, if we can say, some of the dimensions that are coming from the 46th SADC Summit of Heads of State that recently concluded back in last week. But then obviously, South Africa has been in the news, but I first want to welcome you, Ricky. So I'll first give you the opportunity for saying good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Dot.
Yep. So starting off, the emphasis in terms of what we've seen so far in terms of the optics has been that South Africa is going to be the chair, or is going to occupy the chair of SADC for the next foreseeable future, and that obviously the emphasis is being placed on the integration of the bloc. Is this primarily something that is fueled by the unpredictability that we've seen internationally, for example, like the US war in the Middle East, or even the realization, which is already part of the agenda of the community, to be sort of like sped up, putting a little bit more adrenaline into this activity?
No, I believe we shouldn't forget why the institution was formed initially. It was actually formed to foster or deepen regional integration, right? There's quite a number of mechanisms that have been developed to fast track or to ensure that this integration happens. For instance, the Southern African Power Pool, which advocates or is trying to push for a common electrical power grid. Also, the River Basin Organization, which is for member states, for instance, to collaborate on water management and also prevent issues arising from water use in terms of rivers and so on. So you have other institutions within SADC, such as the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, which ran from 2005 to 2020. This organization within SADC, among other things, pushed for a monetary union by 2016. This has not happened. And then in March this year, there was a SADC Council of Ministers who also spoke about accelerated regional integration. The SADC heads of state in August now have also spoken about regional integration. So my take is that regional integration has been a historical issue, but it has not materialized. So therefore, I would say it's not really a matter of the USA and the war, and it's mostly about what the institution has been created for. It's been a historical rhetoric to fast track this integration. So I would like to say probably we are trying, but it will take us long to be, or rather to reach that satisfactory level in which we feel like we are integrated. And it's because of different issues such as political interests that are aligning.
Ricky, there's a good point you just mentioned now, specifically about the common monetary dimension. Do you perhaps remember primarily how that went? Because obviously we have a couple of dominant currencies in SADC itself, specifically with the rand to the south of Namibia. What were some of the discussions back then, if you could remember?
I can't give you the specifics, but I know, of course, of that institution within SADC that was created to push through for that. But if we look at what's currently prevailing, there's no monetary union. What we do is actually on bilateral levels, in, for instance, Namibia and South Africa, using the rand. So I believe that's all that we can get from that. It's not fully implemented.
Just cascading into the next particular talking point, and the reason why this has also been sort of like one of the hot talking points of South Africa was the recent anti-immigration actions that took place in South Africa. Even though the president of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa, who is now the chair of SADC from last week, held the particular sort of like reassuring press conference 2 months back, just to be sure, back in June or July, where he basically said it's up to government to take these actions, not for ordinary vigilantes. But it's not a message, Ricky, that I saw popping up during the course of what happened last week. Is it safe to say that potentially the other Southern African governments, they let it slide in terms of seeing, what reassurances South Africa possibly could have given? Or are we saying, this is probably to just basically view it as basic human to human, let's say, negative instances that have taken place so far?
I believe if you look at the framing of the anti-immigration sentiments in South Africa, you will realize that these issues have been framed as a non-South African position or non-South African government position. Therefore, we have been pointing out at rather the blame on different violent citizens of South Africa. So this in itself excuses the South African government from taking the main blame. And you might note, or you might believe as well to say, most of the SADC countries that share borders with South Africa do not have leverage over South Africa. Our economies are fully reliant on the South African economy, even politically to some extent, because South Africa is seen as that big brother. Yeah. So the SADC countries, I believe, do not have so much leverage over South Africa. But of course, the case is different from countries which are afar, that do not share borders with South Africa, like Nigeria, Ghana, and so on. These are the countries that have voiced out or have criticized the South African government over the anti-immigration protest, violence that has gone on in South Africa. So to close off on this matter, I would say SADC countries do not have so much of a leverage on South Africa, and they have been using quite romantic language, if you to prevent upsetting the South African government, and of course, partially because of the framing that I spoke about initially, to say this is seen as some elements within South Africa who do not occupy high office to be pushing for anti-immigration.
Yeah. Then just moving on, Ricky, into the dimension specifically of Namibia's position. This would be obviously, how does Namibia potentially look at these particular goals that were emphasized? Because our president also came back and she cited the same particular message in the communique that all the heads of state basically approved regarding regional integration. So this potentially speaks back to your first point that you made. But the question that emanates from this is the SADC integration quicker than potentially a Africa, meaning with the AFCFTA integration that the continent wishes to achieve? Because I know both the one is part of the broader picture, for example, the SADC into the AU dimension.
We have been trying. There's a lot that has been done, policies, institutions that have been created to ensure that there's all types or sorts of integration, economic, health, and so on. But the SADC region is stifled by budgetary constraints, rather, and also other economies that are smaller as compared to others, especially when we look at South Africa. But in terms of the value addition to the economies of rather to the minerals of different countries, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Malawi share the same problem, which is we do not have so much value. And the worst part within the region is that trade is not as robust. Yes, and it's because of the integration that we say that has failed to materialize to a level that is beneficial. So in that line, I would say it's going to be a ton of statements, but there is not enough political will and action. I think that's where the problem is. But we, as a region and as a continent, we like to look at outside. For instance, our president was in China and is seen as a major country. We can easily, or rather, the perception is that there's more that can come from China other than from the region. So I think these are the perceptions or issues that prevent the region from actually integrating to the level that we all want to see.
Yep. Getting into sort of like our second last dimension, Ricky, this has obviously to do with conflict resolution. And primarily that SADC technically has two hotspots. The one, Madagascar, is not actually a hotspot. It's all about the democracy.
Need some help with the groceries this month? Then USave has a competition that is just for you. Every Friday between 1 and 2 p.m., Eagle FM will be giving away a $500 USave voucher. To stand a chance of winning the $500 USave voucher, all you have to do is follow Eagle FM Namibia on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and be on the lookout for the weekly competition question. USave, where good food costs less.
The one, Madagascar, is not actually a hotspot. It's all about the democratic principles and institutions to be adhered to. And the other obviously still being Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, which is a province in northern Mozambique. The aspects there have seen how the heads of state back in last week basically they accepted, for example, Madagascar's current military leader. He's got a pretty difficult name. I won't mention it now, but they sort of like accepting him as being currently in the position and not sort of like ostracizing him. Has this been a new change that SADC has taken in terms of accepting, you know what, if internal things happen in the country, we accept what has happened so far, but that we hope for the best outcome for the greater good of the for the country. For example, like returning back to civilian government rule.
As you have seen in the case of the Madagascan or the Malagasy leader, as they would call him, he has promised a return to democratic rule in 18 to 24 months. We don't know if he will fulfill this, but SADC has a system or a culture of not calling a spade a spade. We have a culture in which we do not interfere in the states of member states, rather. So in this case, we have a problem in which it's almost like we are not honest to one another, and this affects the whole processes and the policies that we have created for ourselves. Now, if you look at the Malagasy leader, he arrived in South Africa in military fatigues, which is a sign that he is not a democratic leader. He arrived and he was accepted by the SADC organization, if you like. this in itself gives off a bad precedent or precedents in future. And these are the things that affect the organization from moving forward. But I would like to expand more on Mozambique, including the DRC. These countries are experiencing conflict, and they are looking at SADC with expectations, great expectations. And of course, SADC is an institution through which all these problems, interests can be communicated. Those who want to galvanize support of some extent would do. But you look at DRC, for example, they sent their minister of I believe it's the Deputy Prime Minister, and who also happens to be the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs. You can see that diverging interest within the organization. The DRC's main problem right now is security. Mozambique is going through the same. But with the case of the DRC, for instance, it showed up with the expectation, I would like to believe, to say they were going to push for issues relating to security and peace in their country. But it's as if we can't really accord them this. So the different interests within the region, they do really affect the operation of the organization. And just to expand on, there's a lot of capacity and capability within the region in the space of conflict resolution. But then we would have to look at governance and others. And I know SADC is one of those regions with stable political systems. So in terms of governance, countries which are going through conflict could learn a few things here and there and implement these in their countries. But the problem is different political systems, different governance systems, and the non-interventionist policies of the organization going forward.
Yep, 100%. Ricky, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and our listeners. Thank you once again for that point.
Thank you for the invitation.
Not a problem. Getting into or just past that particular conversation, it does leave us with sort of like a couple of minutes, but we'll quickly be taking a break, dear listeners. We'll be coming back after that as we'll quickly get into a live conversation with Frans here on air, specifically regarding some of the documentation. I'll call it documentation because our colleague Anakleta Haikera in Kavango East had been documenting some of the engagements with a standing committee that paid a visit specifically to the region to assess and to understand some of the core discussions regarding the impact of microlending and the microlending sector on the everyday Namibian in the Kavango East region. We'll be back right after this short break.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
While you are busy enjoying your lunch, while you are busy having some times from 1300 hours, take time and listen to OTR News Bulletin.
On the radar news analysis, we go beyond the headlines. We don't just tell you what's happening, we ask why it's happening, how it affects ordinary Namibians, and what it means for the country's future. We examine the structures behind news, connect policy to people's lived realities, and bring in expert voices to make sense of where Namibia is heading.
You want to get into touch with global governance, global diplomacy, economic relation, trade, statistics, human and infrastructure development, and you want to see how policy planning and policy implementation is connected in Namibia, make time and listen to OTR from 1300 hours to 14:30 with Happy Juju.
Eagle FM, the eye.
And coming back, dear listeners, there from the extended break right there, and heading into the next item on our menu, or specifically in terms of our discussion that we've lined up here. I'm joined by Eagle FM's Frans Ningela. Frans, how are you doing? Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me.
Yes, good afternoon, Dwight.
Yes. Frans, obviously just letting the listeners know, we will be dissecting a little bit of the coverage as well as also the in-depth engagement that the Standing Committee specifically of, I just want to get that full name because it includes industry, planning and public administration, economy, industry, planning and public administration. And this was primarily based on their engagement with various business outlets as well as also local government officials and local authority officials in the region of Kavango East. And some of the particular things, or the main focus, was based on the aspect of micro-lending. However, Frans, you told me before we actually scheduled this talk that there was a unique dimension that actually popped up in terms of this engagement, which our colleague Anakleta also basically touched on. I want you to give us that little bit of a sort of like a golden nugget of information.
Yeah, no, the Public Standing Committee, the Parliamentary Standing Committee was trying to find out the cost of borrowing and whether or not the existing laws are protecting the Namibians from, these micro lenders. Whether these laws that are currently on are adequate to protect the Namibians, especially the salary earners, because most of them earn salary and they end up having, a 500 in their accounts, and they no longer have enough money to cater for their basic needs. And it's not just the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Economy, Industry, and public administration and planning. I think the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labor or Poverty Eradication, Labor and Industrial Relations also had the same engagement in the South. Yeah, when they were looking at whether or not outlets are, in line with the labor law. Yeah. They also touched on the issue of, micro lender.
And specifically, Frans, I remember this engagement also from a little bit earlier in the year, just to be exact, between May and June, when the Standing Committee started off with this engagement. They started off with meeting with Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Namibia, as well as also the NAMFISA representatives in terms of the presentation that came about from there. The one key thing that popped up, Frans, was specifically that there was a gap in the laws, meaning there was a gap in legislation, and there was primarily the agency responsible for looking at microlending, NAMFISA, only has offices in Windhoek. It doesn't have a presence across the country. These would have been some of the things that obviously also highlighted these particular disparities.
Yeah, but the issue, I think, where the parliamentary standing committees are missing the point is when they are looking at the cost
Mm.
and not the cause
Mm.
of borrowing.
Mm.
Because micro lenders, if they are registered, they are just businesses like any other business. In fact, they are employing people also.
Mm. And they're paying salaries and they're paying
And
taxes.
they are paying salaries and they are paying tax.
Yeah.
So it seems as if we are trying to paint them with a black paint here,
Mm.
and try, attempting to paint a narrative that they are the problem.
Yeah.
I think they need to look at the cause of borrowing.
Mm.
What is it that is driving people to cash loans?
Mm.
That is what I see. In most cases, the parliamentary committee standing committees are missing the mark, or they're missing the point,
Mm.
because the cost is fine. We can look at it, we can see, but what is the cause?
Mm.
So that's where we say the cause can be multidimensional. It's multifactorial. It has a lot of factors involved.
Mm.
Because we look at the issues of black tax, issues of, when we look at how we define, life itself, what is it? What is a good life?
Mm.
Because we are allowing, international, organizations to come and define what life is for a Namibian.
Mm.
And that's a problem.
And that usually, Franz, includes also the affordability of many of the what's that thing that the NSA measures, the consumer price index, which looks at the everyday things you buy and the everyday things you consume.
Yeah. So the Namibia Statistic Agency must tell us what poverty is, without borrowing, conceptual interpretations from international bodies, because this is what is killing us. If I'm able to survive below $50 and I don't have a problem with that, why do you come and tell me that is a problem? So why do you want to tell me that that's a problem for me to live below $50 if I'm comfortable with that? Yeah. So that's just an example I'm giving to say that I think the way we define poverty and the way we define good life sometimes is the one that now, because there is a new definition, I must live by that. If I live differently, they might say that I'm poor. And then also family comes in with the issues of black tax, where it's a taboo for you to say you don't have money in a family setup. You are expected to have money all the time, and then this forces people to go and borrow money because they want that continuity in terms of validation, that you are a good person in the family, you are the only trusted person in the family. So that sort of becomes a position. But this position is burdensome, because for you to keep it, you have to have money. And for you to have money, unfortunately, you have to borrow money. And then that's when now micro lenders come, because they need to be regulated too. How do you charge 40%? How did you arrive to charging 40% interest? And that is what is killing. And the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labor, they found out in the South that there is this thing of labor hire, where somebody or an agency looks for a job, for you or on your behalf, and then they tell you that you are going to pay 30%. Now, if you are getting 3,000, 30% of 3,000, that would be 900. Or, over 900, 35%. That's going to be at least $1,005. Now, if my mathematics, serves me well. Now, that $1,005, because your salary is 3,000, so you need to have a 3,000 to reach a 3,000 threshold, and that's where borrowing comes in. You have to borrow that 1,000, and that 1,000 now you are going to pay it back, which is 1,350 if it is 35%. Now, what do you have? You are going to pay 2,350 in it, and then your salary will only be $900. Yeah. So that is what was found out by the Standing Committee on Labor. Now, should labor hire be stopped? Well, many people are calling for it to be stopped, but I remember, if I don't remember very well, there was a case.
Yep.
The government lost.
They lost that case. I think it was a court case in, was it between 2004 to 2006, a labor hire case, and they lost it because there is no claim in the constitution, not the constitution, but rather the company said, this is basically you're going against the business model of what we wish to do.
Yeah, in fact, there was another one. I think there were two cases. There was another one, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2018, where they wanted to end the Africa personnel services.
It's that, sorry, Franz, that's the one. Not as early back as 2004, yes. It's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they lost the case because you don't have guarantee that you are going to win the case. Because what is the labor hire thing? What are they violating? There's no law that they are violating. So that's where it becomes difficult. They are putting the people into problem, truly, to say 30% is too much. Why don't you say maybe 10%? Yeah, or whatever. Can there be a new agreement? But to say now, to jump and say, end this thing, you are going to court. And in court, it's about argument and merit when you lose the case. And then what? The government has lost twice. So I don't think when it comes to that labor hire, the government would want to go that route again. Maybe they are going to explore. So you see the predicament that this thing is in. Yeah. So, but the cost is not a problem. The problem is the cause. Because that cause amounts to the individual interpretation of what money is and how money works and what life is, and that is what drives the person to borrow more money or not.
All right.
And also because we are forced to live a perception. We are not living a life Dwight.
Yeah.
We are living a perception.
Yeah.
That because Dwight is driving a Mercedes-Benz, I must also drive it. But you know that you cannot afford to maintain, to buy. You can afford maybe to buy the Mercedes-Benz, but to maintain it you can't. So you will end up being at the petrol station. You want to whisper, how much the person should put in the tank.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah.
That is the perception we are forced to live. And it seems that government, without knowing, is also going that route. Because who said that if I live below $100, who said I'm poor? Maybe I found a way, because then Namibia Statistic Agency also need to come out and tell us how do they determine poverty? How do they arrive to say this is poverty and this is not? Yeah, I think that is where we need to start when it comes to fixing the issue of borrowing.
100%. Franz, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and our listeners for this afternoon session. Once again, thank you for that insightful contribution.
Thank you, Dwight.
Not a problem. And on that particular note, dear listeners, it does bring us up to the end for today's session of the On the Radar. Stay tuned for the rest of the programming to follow on to after the break, that being with the Etemo Leto team, who will be crossing over to Ondangwa shortly. And on that note, catch me a little bit later on the home run, where we will obviously get into this Monday session engagement on that scenario. On that note, enjoy the rest of your programming in our company. Let's see each other again a little bit later.
While you are busy enjoying your lunch, while you are busy having some times from 1300 hours, take time and listen to OTR News Bulletin.
On the Radar News Analysis, we go beyond the headlines. We don't just tell you what's happening, we ask why it's happening, how it affects ordinary Namibians, and what it means for the country's future. We examine the structures behind news, connect policy to people's lived realities, and bring in expert voices to make sense of where Namibia is heading.
You want to get into touch with global governance, global diplomacy, economic relation, trade, statistics, human and infrastructure development, and you want to see how policy planning and policy implementation is connected in Namibia, make time and listen to OTR from 1300 hours to 14:30 with Happy Juju.